We call our meeting to order. Ms. Steele, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Gibson? Here. Dr. Orth? Mr. Hutson?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Here.
Mr. Bazzani?
Here.
Mr. Nicosia?
Here.
All present.
Thank you, Ms. Steele. We have tonight to have with us Pastor Jack Smith, who will be giving our invocation, and afterwards we will be having our Pledge of Allegiance by Tanner Bertrain from Boy Scout Troop 111.
Good evening. Before I pray, I just want to thank our supervisors for the jobs that you're doing, for taking care of this county the way you are. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for these duly elected supervisors who have been positioned to serve the county of Gloucester. We pray your blessings upon them as they continue to serve our community and our welfare. We thank you for giving our supervisors wisdom to identify and the courage to address the concerns that impact our county. We know that responsibility and stress are sometimes greater than we can even bear. So we pray discernment and peace be upon them as decisions are made. Holy Spirit, continue to impart your wisdom and discernment and understanding to our supervisors and leaders. Touch their hearts to govern with fairness and give them great love for the constituents. Give them correct answers to address the issues that impact our county, including the budget, any poverty issues, economic wisdom, environmental insight. As the federal government tightens the belt, I pray this county prospers and every one of our financial obligations are met. You are worthy, O Lord our God, to receive glory and honor and power. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. Tanner's not here? Okay. There we go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, Pastor Smith. Next, we have the approval of the minutes for March 28th, August 1st, August 10th, April 14th. April 1st, April 10th, April 14th. March 26th.
Second.
First moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, adoption of the agenda,
So moved. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the consent agenda,
So moved. Second.
moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, matters presented by the board. Yes, sir.
Just to update my fellow board members, Mr. Hutson probably already knows this, but the Planning District Commission executive leadership is changing. Mr. Lawrence is going to be moving into a affiliate role with the PDC and taking on a different role as with the PAA as to oversee the dredging projects that we have, which we finally got the money released from the Port Authority so that we can start hopefully getting ourselves and set up for a municipal dredge. Rachel Peabody will be the acting executive director, and I would expect at some point, I know Ms. Steele probably knows this, she's going to be reaching out to come in to speak to us to make sure everyone gets to know her. Mr. Lawrence has been doing it for quite some time, but Ms. Peabody will be here in the very short order to introduce herself to us.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Bazzani.
So, if we all recall, gentlemen, we had a meeting, I guess it's T.C. Walker. We had a gentleman that wanted to speak about a certain topic that concerned him, and we told him, no, you can't do that because it's against board policy to not talk about anything that's not listed in the schedule. And so I wrote an email to each of you. I'd like to change that policy. I think every citizen, no matter what the topics are that we're going to discuss, should come up and speak their mind. It's the only time they get the chance to interact with the board in person. And when you're telling someone you can't speak to us because you can't talk about the topics that are on the agenda, I think that kind of quashes their First Amendment right to say what they want to a board. And so I'm looking, gentlemen, to see if we can change that policy so that anybody can come up to speak about any topic they want to, as long as they're not disparaging our board or insulting anyone. They can come and speak their mind about any topic they want, regardless of what's on the agenda. So I'm hoping that we can change that policy. I know my time is short, but I'd like to see that policy change before I leave, if we can. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Chriscoe.
I think for a while since I was on this board, we had it that way, and we reverted back from, and that's only for our work session, where we have the citizen comment limited to the items on the work session agenda. This being our regularly scheduled first meeting of the month, any citizen can come and talk to us about any topic, even one's not on this one. I think we can have that discussion again, but at this stage of the season, of the year, it'd probably be better for the next board to have that discussion when we set up our rules and procedures and everything else at our organizational meeting, but I think it's definitely a conversation we can have.
Thanks, sir. Any other matters presented by the board? Okay, seeing none, county administrator item.
Just want to congratulate the county departments, mainly Parks, Rec, and Tourism, and anybody else that was involved in sponsoring the food truck frenzy. If you didn't make it by the old page site on Sunday, they had about 3,000 people attend the event. It was very well attended, and they made a little bit of money back. That wasn't the main purpose, but it helps to pay for the grass cutting and the upkeep of that property. So I thought that was a very well attended event. And they are interested in doing a fall event, so that's one of the things I'd like some feedback from the board, making sure that you'd like to see us continue to use that site periodically for special events until it is used otherwise. And then the last thing, the rumor mill is getting really loud about when the tolls are coming off. So I don't have any official word, but it sounds like it's being discussed that we will be getting a date soon. And for the public to understand, the toll plaza will not come down initially, so there'll just be minor road adjustments and the toll plazas will just be empty and everybody will be directed to go through. And then later on, there will be a construction project for the demo and the change things, but looks like it's coming soon. That's it. Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Steele, a couple meetings ago, we were discussing Placer AI and our use of that, and we were going to have folks from them show up to a meeting. I was just curious because I know that our contract was up, but where do we stand with that? Have we re-upped, and when do we expect to see those folks come in?
Okay, you may have missed some correspondence, but they asked to meet virtually because it was too far for them to travel for what it was going to cost for that, and I didn't hear any reply back, and so our policy, we did not renew the contract, so we no longer have that available to us.
Okay.
Thanks. We can renew at any point if anybody is interested.
Okay. So, Ms. Steele, thank you. At this time, we'll have a scheduled presentation or resolution of appreciation for Mr. Ken Evans for his services on the Floodplain Management Committee. Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans, this is resolution showing your appreciation for all the hard work and all the dedication that you put into the Floodplain Management Committee. We thank you and we appreciate you on behalf of this board and also this community. This resolution reads, it says, whereas Mr. Ken Evans was appointed and has been a Floodplain Management Committee member and advisor to the program, staff, and Gloucester Board of Supervisors since July 2014. And whereas he dedicated himself to attending and participating regularly in committee meetings. And whereas Mr. Evans provided experience from the perspective of an insurance agency owner-operator and Gloucester assisted residents with flood risk assessment and flood insurance. And whereas he served as a dedicated member of the Floodplain Management Committee for almost 11 years, serving multiple terms as chair. And whereas Mr. Evans used his extensive knowledge of FEMA, National Flood Insurance Program, and the Community Rating System Program to improve the county's floodplain management plan and help the county achieve a higher CRS rating, thereby lowering flood insurance rates for residents. Whereas Mr. Evans has made multiple presentations regarding floodplain management to the Board of Supervisors to help the board make informed decisions to enhance the safety and well-being of the community. And whereas his dedication and commitment to the community is greatly appreciated, and we thank him for his years of exceptional community service. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors does hereby offer its deepest appreciation and extends its sincere gratitude to Mr. Ken Evans for his service on the Floodplain Management Committee and his dedication and commitment to the citizens of Gloucester County.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Evans, Mr. Evans, is there something you'd like to say, sir? Anything?
A lot of whereas's already.
Oh. Well, add another whereas.
I think I can speak for. I think I can speak for the members past and present of the Floodplain Management Committee and really address our thanks to this board and previous boards. We've had some contentious moments in the last 14, 15 years, and we've arrived at compromises with your help and support that have resulted in some real benefit to our community. I really can only say one thing. I remember seeing the park and ride lot on Guinea Road turned into a transfer station. A waste transfer station we never imagined being 20 feet or higher, filled with every known commodity that could be owned by anybody. I hope and pray that since that storm, we have made the adjustments so that we don't have to give up our park and ride lot, and we have a chance to be able to return to our homes with dry feet and enjoy the land of the life worth living. So, in that prospect, that came with your support and your help, and I speak in behalf of the committee and ask, or thank you very much for your support.
Okay, moving on to public comment period. We'd ask that the speakers please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Any public comment? Yes, they know that. This is anything. This is anything. Right. Ms. Carter, I'm sorry, anything that's not pertaining to our public hearings at this time.
I'm Catherine Carter from the Abingdon District. Earlier today, I sent you an email of the Vlaming versus Westport School Board case. That took place 18 months ago on December 14, 2023. And it was very interesting. The Bill of Rights was what won him $575,000 award from that. He charged the school board with 5 violations of his rights of that Constitution, 2 counts of freedom of religion, 1 count of freedom of speech, 1 count of due process, and 1 count of breach of contract. They awarded every one. It read like the history lesson that Mr. Hutson told me about 2 years ago they didn't need. But I wanted to warn you, there's money in this. And it holds people accountable, elected officials accountable for unofficial acts in office. And the Supreme Court ruled on that in the Chevron deference, and they said to put a tombstone on it. So corporations, agencies, or anyone else has no right on the basis of rules, regulations, or statutes to take away the rights of the people. And I want to read this. The commission chairman, they quoted, of the 1971 Constitution Commission. The commission chairman, Albertus Harrison Jr., was a former governor and Virginia Supreme Court justice. He also made the continuity point clear at that time. Just before releasing the commission's report, Justice Harrison emphasized that, quote, little change has been made in the Virginia Bill of Rights since 1776, when Virginia undertook to draft a Declaration of Rights, end quote. And then he did not, quote, think that we would be so bold as to feel that we could do a better job than those who had drafted the Bill of Rights, unquote. And he went on to say, with reference to religious liberty, the classic statements of religious liberty, one by Thomas Jefferson, the other by James Madison, are in the Constitution even today. They have stood the test of time. So I just want to let you know that as far as the Virginia Supreme Court, which any organization, NGO, or regular corporation comes in here with a contract that violates our rights, you know, like surveilling us and knowing where we go, how long we stay, when we come back, what we do, and monitoring our text messages, that kind of thing, that's also a violation of Amendment 4 in the Constitution of the United States, which is also a Bill of Rights, that any of those infractions are liable, and the Supreme Court of Virginia will honor those. So please be careful.
I'm Diane Jones from the Ware District, and Mr. Nicosia pointed out to me that I offended you by calling you crazy in one of the meetings. So I apologize and repent of that. You're not crazy, but some of the things that come up for you to vote on are wacky. I mean, you know, sidewalks over water management, things like that. The AI, I'm glad that you are not going to renew that. It's not your concern with whether we go to Walmart or who we are or why we go to Walmart. And I realized that it wasn't AI that followed me to church and found out what my role at my church was. But I do know the name of the person and who sent them. Anyway, I hope that all of you go to a church where they not only tell you you can pray, but encourage you to do so. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? Mr. Murray?
Pretty good. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board, Ms. Steele, Mr. Wilmot, Howard Mowry, York. My speech on the boat tax upset our Commissioner of Revenue, and after a very cordial discussion, she presented a letter to me, which you also received for review. It appears reviewing the values of current boat inventory in the amount of $72.3 million with a tax rate of $1 on 100, we are losing currently $723,314 annually. The difference in revenue is known by you from the businesses, but is proprietary and not available to the public. Now is the time to determine the true loss of revenue or gain by the county, to bring back the boat tax, but change the rates as listed by tonnage to where they correspond to the penalties the public pays for their campers and motorhomes. I believe you will see an increase in revenue. Some will flee, but that is our option. So be it. Change needs to take place. With the AI contract, I believe I heard, was canceled, you have collected enough data to evaluate your revenue sources. Let us be correct, we only have service personnel, and also there are no hard manufacturing or warehouse companies here. The greatest mistake caused by the planning department was the layout of the technology overlay district. It upset a lot of people, which was not necessary. If as presented, You can only build 1,000 feet on either side of the transmission lines, then you would never cross 17 at Glenn's. Misinformation. But across from Gloucester in King William County is a 166 megawatt farm being built by Strata with Old Dominion building facilities at both locations with a total amount of 316 megawatts of power. The data center needs to continue since water is not the only source for cooling and soundproofing from roof to ground has been developed. We need to continue research into this revenue source. The utilities borrowing process needs a hard look at. It is a lump sum, which it should be. This way the wolves in waiting do not know what is coming. Once received, individual RFPs can be released without numeric figures. A true bid will then occur in the best interest of the county, we hope. I thank you for the time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Malley. Is there anyone else that would like to? Yes, Ms. Cronin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had 2 comments submitted from Jack Kaufman in the Peasley area. Middle Peninsula and Gloucester County residents are very fortunate for the Dragon Run. It is a special place where nature has been preserved. The actions taken in the Dragon Run watershed affect the delicate ecological balance of the Dragon Run. We have seen with the Carver Creek Solar Facility that it is difficult for our local government to control large corporations and their environmental impacts. The best way to prevent ecological problems in the Dragon Run watershed is to prevent corporations' access to our rural areas. I live in a rural area of Gloucester and will be devastated if a data center were to be allowed near me. I'm not surprised that 82% of those who submitted a survey were opposed to the Technology Overlay District. Please support the Planning Commission's June 6 decision to discontinue its effort to create a Technology Overlay District for data centers. From Kenny Hogg Sr. in Gloucester Point. Good evening. It seems when it comes to federal and state grants for entertainment and social activities, there is never a shortage. But when it comes to grants for aging and failing and mismanaged infrastructure like drinking water, sewage disposal, roadway drainage systems, ditches, and more, there is nothing available. This is nothing new. Over a decade ago, I recommended the Board of Supervisors get with other localities in the state to lobby our state and federal representatives about the need for financial assistance to shore up failing and antiquated water and sewer systems in Virginia. How many resolutions, memos, letters, and legislative priorities lists have over a decade worth of Board of Supervisors sent to state and federal legislators, governors, etc., requesting state and/or federal grant programs for water and sewer systems? I say none. If I am wrong, show me. A few months ago, I provided the board with information about localities that obtained exceptions to the Code of Virginia that barred mandatory connection to public water and sewer systems. Has any effort been made to request exceptions for Gloucester County? You know, a lot of effort and money has been spent to provide public water and sewer in Gloucester County. The sad thing is when the 2 separate water systems that supplied water to the courthouse area and the Gloucester Point area were combined to create one water system, that maintenance of a lot of assets stopped or never even started. The longer this inaction continues, the worse the condition of the overall system will become. The sooner you all realize that, the better off Gloucester County will become. Asset management measures need to be implemented immediately. Kenny Hogg Sr. Those were the only comments.
Thank you, Ms. Cronin. Okay, moving on to our public hearing. Public hearing is on a joint rezoning and condition use application by Marsh Hawk Villas. Ms. Ann Deuces Ortiz.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Do you have a PowerPoint? All right, so this is a joint application as a rezoning and a conditional use permit. It's the first time we actually are doing something like this. So my presentation is a little long. I'll try to rush through it, but it is actually 2 applications, but we're doing 1 presentation, 1 hearing, but then you are asked to vote separately on the rezoning and then the conditional use permit. And I'll explain that as we go along. So this property is owned by Cato Rock 4 LLC. The applicant is Jeff Ambrose, and he has a presentation after this presentation. The property is 3.82 acres, and it's located on Route 17 South between the intersections of Tyndall Drive and Camp Oakey Drive. It's currently vacant and wooded. You can see it, it's starred there. It's surrounded to the east by Grubbs Garage Auto Repair, to the west residential along Tyndall Drive, and then to the north and south also residential. The current zoning and surrounding area, it's zone B1 general business, so you can see that in the kind of the reddish orange there. The surrounding zoning along 17 is also B1, and then the light yellow is our single family residential district, and then the green that you see on the surrounding is multifamily. The proposed zoning, the parcel that has the green star on it, that's proposed to be multifamily, and then multifamily conditional because they are voluntarily proffering no more than 34 units. And then the pink star is proposed to be zoned single family, and that is proposed to be subdivided into two 10,000 square foot lots. So again, they voluntarily proffered no more than 34 units on the multifamily property. The zoning ordinance allows a rezoning, and then a conditional use permit would also allow a higher density. So multifamily allows 8 units per acre, and in our new zoning ordinance update that we approved in September, we also allowed a higher density up to 12 units per acre by conditional use permit. The conditional use permit allows the board to impose conditions versus voluntarily proffers for rezoning, so that is a benefit of allowing the CUP for the higher density. So we'll be presenting them together, but then again, as I mentioned, we're asking you to vote on them separately at the end. So this is the proposed project. So again, you can see the pink border, that's the area to be subdivided into 2 single-family lots, and then the green border is the multifamily proposed to be developed into 34 condominium units. And again, that's limited by the proffer. So there would be a density of 10.86 units per acre, which is what is requiring the conditional use permit. There is proposed to be a 30-foot landscape buffer around the perimeter, and then a 50-foot buffer along Route 17. They are proposing, or conceptually proposing, to have the stormwater facilities there, so that buffer might be interrupted a little by those facilities. It's proposed to be served by a private road with side.
Could you speak into the mic a little bit better?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Is that better? Too short, yeah. So there'll be sidewalks on both sides of the internal road, and then also new sidewalks along the 17 frontage. And then all the units are required to be connected to public water and sewer, including the single-family units. These are the conditions proposed by staff for the conditional use permit. As you know, the board can impose additional conditions, so if you hear things from the public that you think would be appropriate based on the increased density, that would be up to you. I'm going to discuss these further late in the presentation, so I'm not going to go through them right now. So the staff analysis, the comprehensive plan, which was adopted after the Gloucester Point Hayes Village Plan, includes the Gloucester Point Village Plan by reference, but in general, the plan shows the village square mixed use in the front, that's the red area. Mixed density residential is the kind of the brownish areas, and then the single family in the yellow. The comp plan, is a broader scale and doesn't actually follow the property lines. So the Gloucester Point Hayes Plan was a more detailed plan, and that actually does follow the property lines, and that talks about the property being a transitional area. And then the red is the core area, which is the area that has a higher intensity development, and then the kind of the greenish color there is the area that's to remain as is outside the development area. So the transitional area really specifies that the area will be primarily residential, but made up of more intensive residential uses such as apartments, condominiums, and townhomes. And the development parameters for the transitional area should seek to bridge those between the core area and the residential area, including minimum and maximum established for building height, front and side yards, and other parameters. So the joint application proposes a higher density on the MF1 parcel, and that also has additional criteria that would minimize the impacts to the residential area behind it. So this is just kind of demonstrated this, the area, the proposed parcels in the circle, and the red areas are the kind of the higher intensity uses along 17, and then the lower intensity uses are towards the yellow area adjacent to the residential areas. The other important thing is that the development would have pedestrian connections within and adjacent to the property to create that walkable village environment envisioned in the Gloucester Point Hayes plan. So moving on to transportation impacts, the property is directly on Route 17 and south at 17 South, and Tyndall Drive is to the north of it. Route 17 South is categorized as a principal arterial with roughly 30,000 daily trips and 33 weekday trips, and Tyndall Drive is categorized as a local road. There would only be right-in and right-only movements at this intersection. There's no left turn movements, and the nearest signalized intersection is at the Camp Oakey intersection. It would require a U-turn movement to travel northward, and there is a pedestrian signal at Camp Oakey that would allow pedestrians to cross 17 safely. This sidewalk, we had gotten funding for the sidewalk on 17 after the improvements were made that widened the road there. We didn't have enough money for VDOT to put in a fully compliant sidewalk. So one of the conditions that staff is proposing for the CUP is that the applicant redo the sidewalk that meets the VDOT requirements, and would have the verge area, and it would be a buffer between the road and the sidewalk. Also, this area, there are two curb cuts along there that were put in by VDOT when this was widened, and the proposed development would have a single curb cut at this location. Staff put together some other types of development that could go here, just to, from other projects we had, to kind of give you a sense of the amount of traffic that it would be generated by this proposal, as well as some other proposals that we've recently seen along 17. So this is in your staff report, just to give you some idea of the impacts relative to other potential uses of the site. And again, I mentioned about the sidewalk, so we are proposing that the sidewalk would be made more compliant in terms of ADA and VDOT requirements for the streetscape. These are the properties along Tyndall Drive and Camp Oakey Drive to kind of give you a sense of the area behind it. From a fiscal impact, the 34 condominium units and 2 single-family lots are anticipated to increase the assessed value of the land. As a result, the anticipated tax revenue would increase as well. Based on our discussion with our county assessor, both the multifamily and single-family uses are considered residential uses for the proposed property assessment, and most B1 uses would be business. And so when determining the impacts, the residential adjacent to residential typically had lower impacts to the existing residents than if you had a B1 property in terms of the impact on the assessed value of the adjacent properties. Additional fiscal impacts, there would be indirect revenue from jobs created during the project construction, as well as indirect temporary revenue, indirect revenue from any residents relocating to the development from outside the counties, and taxes collected from business residents of the development taxes collected from businesses as residents from the development shop at nearby stores. We use several resources to look at fiscal impacts, but a lot of those are outdated. Staff has generated a new subdivision schools calculator that we've been working with the Planning Commission based on existing projects. And so we did use that and information from the community impact statement and the Gloucester school system to look at potential fiscal impacts. So here's just the anticipated number of school kids generated by the proposal. We looked at what the applicant provided, the Gloucester schools, and then our new subdivision calculator. So basically, the estimates indicated in the staff report, we do not expect a significant impact to the schools based on this development. And then we don't anticipate any major significant fiscal impacts. We do anticipate increase in direct and indirect tax revenues, limited impacts to adjacent property assessment, limited impacts to schools, and again, any buildings would have to be constructed to the building code requirements. So the environmental impacts, the site is wooded and probably does provide habitat for a variety of animals, but no features of significant environmental concern or sensitive environmental features exist on the property. It'll be subject to all the environmental regulations and evaluated during the site plan review, so it will have to meet Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance, Stormwater Management Ordinance, and the Erosion and Sediment Control Ordinances. The project will be served by public water and sewer. Both the the multifamily and the single family will have to be connected. There's multiple ways they can be connected, and we've been working with the Department of Public Utilities that these will have to be dealt with at the time of development, but they have several ways they could connect to the sewer system and options for how they can connect to the public water system. There are no wells on the property, and they will need to perform a water and sewer study as part of their site plan review process. Again, other impacts, they are proposing the landscape buffers, a 50-foot buffer along Route 17. So again, it's not just a setback, but they are proposing landscaping, and then the 30-foot landscape buffer around the entire perimeter. The CUP condition of use for the property, we tried to address some of the concerns that we had on a previous application for this property. So working to get lighting away from adjoining properties, and to make sure that the other utilities will be extended to the development and placed underground. Provision of the utilities required at no cost to the developer when positive revenue is identified. And then the zoning ordinance also requires all utilities to be placed underground. And then the multifamily property will be served by private waste collection and disposal service paid for by the HOA fees. Now again, getting onto the CUP conditions, again, the CUP is meant to provide for uses which are not generally permitted, but which may be acceptable in certain locations. So this would just be, if you propose to zone it to multifamily, the CUP would allow additional density that would not be allowed in the by right multifamily. So the intent of the multifamily is to provide for a variety of housing accommodations, and then the increased density would allow additional density in this multifamily. So the CUP ordinance requires that you have to meet these 7 criteria. They're outlined in the staff report, so I'm not going to go through them all, but we found that these criteria were met in the proposal. And so based on that recommendation, staff had no significant concerns raised during the staff's review of the joint application. Any impacts have been addressed through the design of the conceptual plan and the proffered limit of 34 condominium units and the CUP conditions of use. And if approved, the development plan would need to be submitted to address all the local and state requirements. So the staff recommended approval of it, of both applications, because they further the village had mixed-use designations aimed for relatively higher densities where appropriate when developed with pedestrian-oriented improvements, provide for a variety of housing types, located in the development district, which is our principal area of growth, and it achieves several housing chapter goals, encouraging housing of various types and promoting the use of safe and livable neighborhood designs. And then it meets the transportation chapter goals to ensure that development roads have minimum negative impacts on road systems and traffic patterns, encourages the provision of adequate mobility for all segments of the community, and encourages traditional neighborhood design, and supports the natural resource chapter objective to encourage development in areas where we have public water and sewer. So again, staff provided recommended conditions, which again, the board can change or impose additional conditions. So in general, development consistent with the conceptual plan that was submitted, new compliant sidewalks, as I discussed, along Route 17 frontage, internal sidewalks and pedestrian circulation. You may have noticed on the plan, the circulation go around the entire project, so we're going to ensure that that happens on the site plan. Public water and sewer connection, meeting the requirements of the Department of Public Utilities, landscape buffer along 17, and lighting not to reflect on adjacent properties. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on June 5th. We had 1 comment submitted in favor of the joint application related to the housing type and the need for additional housing due to low inventory. And then we had 3 comments submitted opposed to the joint application based on the impacts to the adjacent neighborhood, and then traffic noise and maintenance impacts. We had no in-person public comments. The Planning Commission had quite a discussion on this. There were multiple views expressed. Most commissioners felt that the existing B1 zoning, even though if not developed immediately, was more appropriate for these parcels than the benefits provided from the proposed multifamily, conditional zoning, and the single-family zoning on the proposed development. One commissioner felt, since the planning guidance described the area as mixed use, that would be a better use of the site to have mixed commercial and residential. And the board liaison expressed concern about the potential for the by right uses in the B1 and their impacts on the adjacent property and the public's lack of opportunity to contribute to that discussion because they would be by right. So the Planning Commission initially, there was no motion, and eventually the Planning Commission did vote to recommend denial of the application. It was a 5-1 vote with one person absent to vote for recommended denial of the multifamily. So when they voted, obviously if the multifamily was not approved, then they voted to recommend denial of the conditional use permit. So that's the end of my presentation. I know I rushed through it, but now the applicant does have a presentation, and then we would open it up to any questions and the public comments. So Mr. Ambrose would like to speak.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman and board members. My name is Jeff Ambrose. I am the owner of Marshak Villas LLC, which is the applicant for tonight's project. Just a little bit about my background. I've lived in the area for over 20 years, worked for a large home builder for a long time, and was involved in a lot of large developments. I left 3 years ago and created my own real estate company, and I'm focused just on small developments, 50 lots or less, even smaller. And it's a family company. My son's here with me tonight. No other owners or investors. I specifically do small projects, so I don't need to worry about bringing in outside investors. One of my first projects was Swiss Legacy, which is down here off of Beckwith Drive, where there's homes being sold in there now. Focused on providing quality housing and quality communities, and I'd love for this to be our second project here in Gloucester. So a little bit, why this property? Property's been for sale for many years. I think it's an underutilized piece of property. I'll talk a little bit further. I don't believe commercial is the best use for this property. The other thing is, you know, we have a lot of developments that are these suburban sprawl. They're out there knocking down 40, 50 acres of trees, all these things that I think Gloucester is a rural county, and we want to keep those rural characteristics of the county. And this allows us to do infill development, which is where your utilities are, and it's probably a total of clearing of maybe 2 acres for the entire property, maybe a little bit over that. So it's infill development, provides additional rooftops along Route 17 to visit those businesses and provide income to those businesses. As Ann pointed out, I think it's consistent with the comp plan, and I'll talk a little bit more about the specific housing and the price points, which I think also accomplishes a goal of the comp plan. So just a little bit further on the comp plan. So alignment with the comprehensive plan. If you read on your planning division website, you all spent a lot of time on your comp plan. You put a lot of effort into it, community input, board input, planning commission, et cetera. And it's really a guide to the growth of the county, or any county for that matter. And I think the staff did a great job of kind of pointing out how this project aligns very well with the comp plan. Another big focus of the comp plan in the housing chapter talks about future growth will require new and creative housing techniques that increase affordability and density where appropriate. And I think that's exactly what this project does. In terms of the commercial zoning, so is this really the best zoning for these 2 small properties? Allowed uses under the current zoning. So today, by right, I could come in here, I could build a convenience store, a restaurant, a drive-through, an automobile service station. I could do a 4-story hotel on the property, a church, a daycare. All those are much more intense uses than what we're suggesting. So I would argue that I don't believe the current zoning is the best for the surrounding community. Property's been for sale since 2022 with little interest. And the only other interest was from a multifamily developer that was looking to do 60 units. I'm proffering 34 as the maximum. it's just not an ideally suited property for commercial development. All the things that you look for commercial development, this really doesn't have. It doesn't have great access. It's a small property. It's adjacent to residential homes, and most commercial properties want to be near other commercial properties. And if you are a commercial user looking for property in the county, the statistics will show you there's many other spots here in the county that commercial properties can choose that are probably a better location for them. Moving on to just a couple more slides. This is a sample of the product I'm suggesting, and just to be clear, these are townhome condominium style units. So each of those, that's a 6-unit building, and each unit kind of has a different color. That would be a family that lives in that unit. These are not apartments. It's not one family on one floor and another family above them or anything like that. These are individually, and this is a 2-story style unit. You can see the size and the bedroom count. And then this would be a potential 3-story unit that would provide a garage on the first floor. And just, this is my last slide, just a little bit about, I feel the need for this type of community. I've been in real estate my whole life. And if you look at the statistics in the county right now, there's 16 homes, resale homes, that are priced under $325. And there's 0 new construction under $420. Most of the new construction is $500,000 plus. 16 homes that are for sale are 42 years old. So if I'm a young family trying to buy a house, I have 16 houses to choose from, 42 years old. I got to update the HVAC, put a new roof on it. How do I have the money to do those things? So the goal of this property is to provide homes that local residents can purchase. Buyers are expected to be young families, maybe move-down buyers that are looking for a more maintenance-free lifestyle. The community will have an HOA that manages the exteriors of the property, cuts the grass, keeps the common areas looking good. We're going to make sure it looks good from the start all the way through the life of the community. And then the other thing I really want to point out is by proffering a maximum of 34 units on the site, you're also creating kind of the economics of what a project would look like. This isn't going to turn into 100 apartments with a bunch of problems and all that kind of stuff. It's capped at 34 units. When you look at putting in the water, the sewer, the streets, building the property, building the homes themselves, these are going to need, and it's 2 years from now, by the time they're on the ground, they're going to be in the low 300s is really where the price point's going to come in at. So I did a little math for everyone. A mortgage of $330,000 in today's dollars at a 6.75% interest rate, which is what the rates are right now. You include all their HOA fees and taxes. This is a $2,500 a month payment that these people are going to pay. Which is a lot, but there's a lot of people that are paying $2,000 a month in rent right now, and this or more, and this would give them an option to purchase a home and start a path of home ownership, which I think is critical for us to provide our residents. And so you could see, in order to qualify for that monthly payment, the household income is going to be about $90,000 or more. So we're going to have it's going to be a quality development with quality residents, and I urge you to approve this project this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll open up for public comment. Any public comment?
Before you make a decision on this project, please review carefully the UN Project 21. There are many neighborhoods in Newport News that have been designed according to that project. This project apparently has one way in and one way out, which would be a disaster at rush hour if everyone goes to work that lives there. So just look it up and consider it before you make any decisions on this or any other project. Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other public comments? Mr. Mallory?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Howard Mallory, York. How much is dirt and weeds worth in taxes to revenue to the county? It's not worth much. Let's take a trip down 17. You have a subdivision that has only one road in and out. It has to go north before it can go south. You go up across from the shopping center, you have another subdivision. It has only one way in. You can either go north, you have to go south before you can go north. You have businesses along 17 the same way. You have thousands of square feet of empty business space up and down the county corridor. This subdivision will set the norm for what's going to happen after January the 1st, this coming year. Is you're going to allow building, comprehensive building in the county, or are you going to shut the county door and not have any housing at all? Or is it going to be selective housing to selected developers? A lot to reconsider. I would approve this subdivision. It fills up an empty space. You have a revenue source that's larger than what you're collecting now. Dirt does not bring in a lot of money. The impact of the citizens is marginal. You've got an entrance to go, actually you'll wind up with entrance 2 to go in and out, and a light control on the other end, depending on which way the owners of property care to exit or enter. It's a benefit to the county to let this short lot be built out and forget about business, B1. Nothing's moving. You would still be left with a lot of dirt and weeds. It's time to rethink your revenue sources to get the revenue you need to take care of our failing infrastructure. I thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Anyone else for public comment? Trish, I think Ms. Cronin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had 3 comments submitted from Doug Hurrah, apologize for mispronunciation. Our company foreclosed on this property and has had it actively listed for sale since 5/29/2019 through to the present day. In over 6 years, we've had 0 interest from anyone in buying this property to use it for any B1 use. I truly hope the board recognizes that this property is better suited to be zoned for residential use. Thank you. From Michael Allen of Harvey Lindsay Real Estate, the condos and 2 single-family homes planned for tax map reference 51A4-A and tax map 51A11-E1, rezoning to residential offers a quality improvement that matches the residential neighborhood adjoining the undeveloped land that is currently zoned commercial. As a commercial broker with experience in the Gloucester submarket, the land currently zoned commercial has laid fallow for decades due to the odd shape of the lot and very limited interest in new retail development in this immediate corridor. The residential use will fit well with the adjoining neighbors and offer a significant new source of real estate tax income to the county with minimal traffic impact. The last comment from Melody Douglas in the Page area. Gloucester County does not need any more condos or any more places that will eventually be turned into Section 8 housing. We have enough riffraff coming in and out of the county. Can you guarantee these won't be turned into Section 8 housing or become ghetto and untaken care of? Those are the only comments.
Thank you, Ms. Cronin. Okay, no more public comments. Board member comments.
you want to close the public hearing?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, yes, yes. Let's close our public hearing.
Okay.
Okay.
We have to vote on that?
No.
Go.
I tried to listen to Mr. Ducey Ortiz's presentation. What specifically did the Planning Commission object to this project? What were some of the criteria? Because I don't think you listed any of their comments in it. And I didn't have time to watch television because of family issues, but what specific negative comments did they have about this?
There was nothing actually specific. They felt that the B1 zoning, the words they used was that they didn't feel the applicant convinced them that the MF1 was better than the B1.
Okay, but B1 has been there, it's been like that, and it's not been, old, you know, even some people have commented, it's not been sold, it's been there for 7 or 8 years. We have another development further south, a bunch of condos that went up there, and they're successful. They haven't caused any traffic jams or, you know, didn't really impact the school system. I don't see a real problem with this project myself. Thank you.
Yeah, staff's in support of it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Bazzani. Any comments?
I appreciate the presentation by both parties, and I think we as a board want to consider every proposal with a lot of scrutiny, because our comprehensive plan talks about preserving the rural character of our community, and so we should always keep that in mind, and also the environmental impact of any proposed developments is always important. We also have to keep in mind that we've got some strain on our infrastructure, on our roads, on our schools, on our first responders. We've always got to keep that as a factor when we consider these proposals. But in my mind, each proposal stands on its own, and we shouldn't just take a blanket position, no development, and a blanket position, let everybody in. I think we've got to consider case-by-case basis. And I've thoroughly read the background material. I appreciate the presentations, and I feel like this is an appropriate use of this property. It's been sitting vacant with zero interest in business use for years and years and years. I think this is a minimal footprint on this property. And I hear from the community that there's a lack of housing inventory, particularly for your first-time home buyers, for your, I guess, middle-income buyers, your firefighters, your police officers, your teachers, your nurses, and this would be an ideal option for families like that, and perhaps also retirees who are looking to downsize. So I think it serves our community. The other factor here, and I think Mr. Hutson brought this up at the Planning Commission, is the alternative might not be a good thing for the residents. There might be a hotel built there that's going to create a lot more noise and environmental impact. Auto repair business, certainly we've got to get our autos fixed, but that could be an impact of noise and environmental impact. So I think when you consider the alternatives, this is actually a better, less impactful addition to that area. So I'm voting to support it.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Orth.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'll certainly echo the previous comments by our esteemed colleague here. A question for Mr. Ambrose. You know, we keep on hearing comments from citizens about projects that develop and then turn into Section 8. Can you just comment on that and your experience with things like this? I mean, obviously, this is something that is of interest given a situation that developed in this county that has concerned others, and I wonder if you can at least address that point for us.
Yeah, I can address it to the extent I know it. I've never done that type of housing myself, and there's a reason I don't do that, but I've worked around real estate for a long time. And first of all, there's a whole separate financing mechanism related to government housing. And just so you know, as a board, the numbers don't work on that type of housing until you get like over 100 units. So when you get large projects and you look at those, you need to be careful and maybe put some safeguards in place about what's going to happen. But when you deal with a project of 34 units, I was walking you through the economics earlier, like there's no way you can do assisted, government housing, like the numbers, literally the deal would fall apart. And that's why I keep my projects small and so we can provide quality housing to this middle income, class of people.
Yeah, regarding the construction itself, are you bringing in individual builders? Who are the people that you actually contract to build this particular facility?
Good question. Undetermined at this point, because the way this process works, it's probably 2 more years until I get to a point that I'm actually ready to go vertical. I have to get my plans approved, then I have to put the horizontal infrastructure in the ground. There's a chance I will build it myself through an entity that I own. There's a chance that I could partner up with a small local builder and we could do it together. So those are all avenues that I would pursue at that time.
And I had asked you, as we talked on the phone the other day, about the utility issues. You don't see any problem with the water and sewer, because that whole area of the point is an interesting topic for
Sure.
our water and sewer system.
It's, I've been in this business long enough to say that you never know there's no issue until it's done and you've done all the engineering, but everything I've looked at so far, there's capacity in that area. There's a pump station that's within 800 feet or so of the property that's already existing, already accepted by the county. My goal would be to tie into that. There's other kind of backup plans, but all of those at this point, which is the reason I like the site, is you have existing infrastructure. I'm not having to build a sewer line, 2,000 feet to get to it and disturb a bunch of land and that type of stuff. So at this point, I don't foresee any issues.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments, and again, not to repeat what has been said, but points by both Mr. Mowry and Mr. Gibson, I think, are very appropriate, and I feel this is the perfect use for this type of property, and I would support the proposal.
Thank you, Dr. Orth. Any other board member comment? Yes, sir. Mr. Chriscoe.
Maybe Ms. Ducey Ortiz can answer this.
I have several
No.
questions.
Ms. Carter,
Are
public
these
comment.
units
Ms. Carter.
smart?
Ms.
Oh,
Carter,
I'm out.
public
I can't
comment
talk?
is over. Public comment is over. Public comment is over. Okay, thank you. Public comment is over. Thank you. Public comment is over.
Mr. Ducey Ortiz, I'm not sure if you can answer this question or not. The only thing that I've really, the heartburn that I have with this is the one way in, one way out. And looking at the info from the Planning Commission and, with VDOT, did VDOT ever, or anybody ever look at the 2 other lots they're wanting to go to single family as putting in an alternate access point to get them back to Tyndall, to get them around without having to get on 17 or not? Was that ever brought up or discussed?
Well, the 2 single-family will have curb cuts on Tyndall.
No, but I was saying, have an alternate entrance to come.
From the multifamily to get to Tyndall?
To do away with those multifamily lots, to make it an entrance off of Tyndall to get into this property. Was that ever discussed or no?
No, it was not discussed. So typically, we don't require 2 entrances until you get over 50 lots.
Correct.
So,
No,
yeah.
I do know that, but just with this look, I grew up behind this property. It's been this way since I was born in 1975. It is set just about like it is. To my knowledge, it's never even been timbered that I remember. I think some trees have fallen down, they've been cleaned up, they've just gone in and cleaned it up. I was just curious because it's just such a tight little area between, from there to that stoplight is very short distance. So that's one thing that I had just wanted to get clarification on.
Yeah, it's never really, VDOT did look at it. They usually don't make detailed comments until the site development plan. But the proposal has always been to have the 2 single-family from Tyndall, so not have access to the multifamily from there.
Mr. Chriscoe, we have a number of developments in this county that have similar issues, and it's unfortunate the way 17 is built and the fact that a lot of these cut-throughs have been terminated.
For me, it's just, as we've had other developments come in and they want to be on a corner, they want to have an access off of 17 and one off of a side road, and, just, like I said, living here my entire life and actually traversing through that area, it's just a question that I thought I would ask if it was ever discussed.
But like you, I've seen stay the way it has been since I came in '69.
Ms. Ducey Ortiz, when it was originally proposed by the other developer, didn't VDOT decline an entrance there because of the proximity to the turn off of 17?
The other developer wasn't sure how they were going to use that lot, so I don't know if Mr. Ambrose saw this, but apparently there are restrictive covenants that it can only be used for single-family development, so the other developer, and that never did come to the board, the other development withdrew it before it came to the board, but they did look at trying to use that either for a pump station or for some type of entrance, and one of the issues was the proximity of it, like even as far away from the entrance, that's not really a great distance to the intersection. So for two curb cuts for residential, single-family homes, that's not an issue, but if it was for an entrance for multifamily, it would have been a bigger issue.
While I've got you up there, Ms. Ducey Ortiz, I know with that being B1, houses, as it's currently zoned, can't be built there.
Correct.
And what other businesses would be prohibited
In the B1?
in the B1?
Anything that would be like I-1, so any residential use, there are, I do have the list of B1 uses if you want, I can hand it out, but there are things that would not be allowed would be most residential, most agricultural, any industrial uses like heavy industrial, and then also adult uses, which we do allow in our industrial area by conditional use permit. So what I'm passing out now is the list of permitted uses, and then some of them are by right permitted, and then some are by conditional use permit or special exception. So I think when we talk about hotels and stuff, that would be like a CUP that you would have to use. But there are, B1 is our our least restrictive zoning district. We allow most uses in B1 except for residential, agricultural. We do allow some manufacturing, light manufacturing, craft manufacturing. So I think the biggest impact would be something like auto facility. We do allow towing, not so much impound yards, so those kind of uses. Those are only permitted by conditional use permit in I-1.
And what was the size of that lot that's going to be subdivided again? I'm trying to find it.
20,000.
Not to be subdivided.
20,000.
The whole parcel is 3 acres, but, you know,
I know it's in there, I just can't find it fast enough.
it's actually on the environmental impact, I just can't read it. It's about, each lot is about 10,000 square feet, so it's 20,000 square feet in general.
Okay. Any other board member discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Okay, we have resolution, page 71, to approve.
Motion to approve? Second.
All in favor? Hold.
Okay. Dr. Orth?
Yes.
Mr. Hutson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Bazzani?
Yes.
Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
And Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So, Mr. Wilmot, we don't have to do anything with the,
Yes, we need to do the
so you
second.
have to do the second one? Okay. Oh, the second, I'm getting to that one. We don't have to do anything with the deny?
No.
One. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, we have a resolution for the CUP.
So moved.
To approve or
Yep,
deny?
that's on page, yep,
I'm sorry.
thank you, page 76. So the second, Ms. Steele?
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Bazzani?
Yes.
Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Dr. Orth?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to public hearing to consider an ordinance revising certain utility fees, rates, and charges imposed by Chapter 13 Water, Sewer, and Sewage effective August the 1st, 2025. Ms. Katie Legg, Director of Public Utilities.
Hi, good evening. I have a very short presentation for you tonight, so we'll do something a little out of the ordinary for me. So tonight you have a public hearing to revise application and development fees specifically, and then there are also some miscellaneous charges that we will look at as well. So real quick, I'm just going to review a couple of things that you've already seen before. review current fees, and then what the advertised proposed fees are. So this is just a snapshot, so you can see the revenue that has been generated for the last 10 years for sewer and water connection revenue. You can see that in 2024 and through this period of 2025, that these are our lowest points. I don't believe that these fees have changed since at least 2011. For the last few years, you can just see what our water connection numbers look like. 3/4, which is usually our standard residential, 1 inch and 1.5 inches. 3/4 and 1 inch is about 97% of our accounts right now. So real quick, again, this is a lot of information because all of these fees are set by meter size, so I'll just go through real quickly so you can again see what the fees currently are. There is a separate application fee and a separate development fee for both sewer and water. Again, everything is set by meter size, so you can see what our sewer connection fees are. So a new construction home with a 3/4 inch meter to hook up to sewer would pay the county connection fees of $4,500. HRSD has additional fees that for that size meter range between $24.50 and $42.75. And then of course, the larger the meter, the higher the cost goes up. It's important to note that these fees are charged in combination for new construction. If there's an existing home already that says, okay, you know what, now it's time for me to abandon my septic tank, they would only pay the application fee for their size water meter. They would not pay the development fee. Also, the development fee goes into the restricted development fund that is meant to support the growth of the system. So again, you've seen this before. This just gives you an idea of where our sewer connection fees currently sit in relation to surrounding localities. You can see that Gloucester is the second lowest, third lowest. I clearly don't know my numbers. And New Kent, of course, is much higher, and I think you'll see that with water as well. Same type of spreadsheet, again, application and development fee for water broken down by meter size. Same rules apply as far as if you're an existing property, you will only pay the application fee. These are total new construction costs. One thing that is not on here and is not actually part of the public hearing, but just to note, is that there is a fee for irrigation meters that are separate. That is separated in the code. It is not listed in the ordinance like this with all of the other fees. It is separated and just says it's 10% of the application fee for water. So when the application fee changes, the percentage for irrigation meters.
Do we have to leave it that way, or can we set a number for that that's not just a 10%? Or do we know, or it might be a Mr. Wilmot question?
I would assume that you could make changes to the code as you feel necessary once advertised.
It'd be good to know, because I know some of our neighboring jurisdictions, they have a rather large fee for that meter. Can we make sure that we can adjust that if we need to, because 10% might not be enough?
You may. My concern is your ability to do so tonight because it wasn't advertised.
No, I'm not asking to do it tonight.
Yes,
It would be nice to know what our ability is to change that irrigation meter fee.
To a flat fee?
To a flat fee.
Rather than a percentage?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm sure you can.
Okay.
But I'd urge caution as far as one size fits all. Depending on the size of the multifamily dwelling, you might want to keep it as a percentage, but that's totally up to you.
So right now, again, irrigation meter fees are 10%. Given our new metering system and the new boxes and the new lids that they fit in, the 10% cost does not cover, or the 10% fee does not cover the cost to the county to get those items. But that can be a discussion for another time. I promised you a short presentation.
Thank you.
Again, same picture that you've seen before, how Gloucester's water connection fees compare to surrounding localities. And in this case, Gloucester is the second lowest. So total water and sewer connection fees, looking only at our 3/4 inch and our 1 inch. You have seen this before. I pulled it from the previous presentation, where Gloucester ranks in totality amongst these other locations. And you can see that we are the second lowest, although tied with Isle of Wight for 3/4 inch. Again, 97% of our current accounts are in these 2 meter sizes. So next I'll review the advertised fees. So when I came to you last time, I offered 3 different options. There was no real guidance on where to start in looking at this. I just knew that it needed to be looked at. So I provided you 3 different options, and you all opted to advertise one of the options that was more stringent. So the application fees that you will see for both sewer and water will now increase by 50%, and the development fees will triple. So again, you can see here broken down by meter size. For a 3/4 inch meter, the sewer fees in totality will go from $4,500 to $8,550. So it will essentially double. Water fees, again, you can see the same premise applies. Application fees will increase by 50%. Development fees will increase by 3 times. The total cost raising by, for 3/4 inch, about 1.7 times. So what that locality comparison looks like with those new rates, you can see Gloucester now moves to the second highest in using those same localities as a comparison. What the revenue impact looks like if you were to adopt those new rates or new fees. The FY26 budget as adopted shows the revenue from the current fees at just under $112,000. By changing the fees to the proposed, we could incur an additional $130,000. As a reminder, those budget figures were very conservative because we've had a couple of fiscal years where we have banked on development that has not occurred. We were not comfortable doing that again. And then the other fees and charges, these also needed to be addressed. So the discontinuance of sewer service is currently 35. We're proposing going to 50. Renewal of sewer service after hours. So also in the ordinance, we have clarified what that means. So after the hours of 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, Saturdays, Sundays, or holidays. That fee goes to $100. Water service from 35 to 50, and then the renewal after hours from 50 to 100 also. The reestablishment without authorization, this is if someone has their water turned off and they turn it back on without us knowing. That fee goes from 75 to 150. And then a new fee or a new charge of equipment tampering and destruction fee. So again, given the cost of our new metering system and the things that go with it, if someone were to damage that, sometimes we do, it's a kind of a case by case, and if there's a true accident, we may say, okay. But there are other times that we have folks that deliberately tamper or destroy our equipment. So we're proposing a $250 charge for that. That would also include if someone has opened a hydrant without our permission. That has happened. Also, if they get into it without a meter. Just in chart form, so you can see the proposed amendment for sewer and application fees. This is all listed in your board packet starting on page 186 as part of the resolution. And you can see I have listed the current fees and what the proposed fees are. These are water application, water development, and then the other fees and charges. And that's it, but it won't let me end.
Okay.
But that's the last slide.
Okay, is that it, Ms. May?
That's it.
That's it? Okay. All right, we'll open for public comment. Any public comment? Here we go. Public comment on this proposal.
I just couldn't help but notice the compact of the neighborhoods that were laid out. And I just wonder, are they smart houses? You know, like with metered water, smart water, you get an allowance if you do the right thing. Are they eventually going to be attached to a social score so that you be limited to money that you might have coming in? The bank might be able to put a
Ms.
hold
Carter.
on it if you don't
Ms.
do
Carter.
certain things.
Ms. Carter. That's
They're
not what
not-
we're talking about, Ms. Carter.
They're not smart houses.
Ms. Carter, that's not what we're talking about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Carter, this is the public hearing on the rates for water and sewer. It's not, the public hearing on the housing development is already over, so that's done. So if you have any comments about the proposed rates for water and sewer, that's what we're talking about now.
All right. No, I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank,
Yeah, I figured it was a done deal. I misunderstood.
all right, we're
But I
sorry.
still want to know, are the houses,
Okay.
it doesn't matter if it's a done deal. Are they smart houses? That's what I want to know.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right. Mr. Marley.
Mr. Chairman, Howard Mowry, York. The proposal is really, when you think about it, on the cheap. You need to raise the fees and charges still higher. The developer will pay those costs, and then it's fished on to the real estate to raise the price on the building. But you can see that the model for utility cost is actually Norfolk, not Norfolk, but Newport News. And we should take a hard look at what they charge across the board and figure out a formula to put it in place in this county. Because we are, as you know, millions in the red to upgrade our existing system. I think this proposal here should go back and be reevaluated and brought back to you, because we need money. It's an enterprise, and in reality, it's only surviving on small charges for income and fees. It needs to be increased to be able to upgrade the system, which is failing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any more public comments? Okay. Ms. Cronin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One comment was submitted from Kenny Hogg Sr. in Gloucester Point. Good evening. I'm not in favor of most of the proposed water fee increases because they are not even close to being large enough. Gloucester's current water service development fee for a 6-inch water service is $25,000. Compare that with Newport News Waterworks' 2026 6-inch fee of $332,640 that has been in place since 2017, and to James City County Service Authority's current 6-inch fee of $279,930. You should quickly realize that if the board approves the current fee proposal, you will once again cut utilities' financial throat. This is just one example of continued lost revenue contained in the proposed fee changes, but there are numerous other examples in the proposal before you tonight. I recommend immediately raising all development fees to a level comparable with Newport News Waterworks and James City County Service Authority. I recommend amending Section 19-126 of Gloucester's ordinances to allow water development fees to also be used for the replacement and upgrade of antiquated components and sections of the water system. I also recommend implementing rates for fire hydrants that align with those charged by Newport News Waterworks. That was the only comment submitted, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cronin. Okay, let's close our public hearing. Board member, any comments?
Mr. Cronin, can you bring that slide back up? Perfect. So, my only concern with this is somebody didn't pay their water bill. They got their water cut off. They still have sewer working because we don't have a valve to cut that off. Yet when we cut it back on, proposed, and let's say it's within working hours, we're going to charge $50 to cut it on for water, and then another $50 for sewer. It's after hours is when it's going to go up. I think that, I don't think it needs to be twice the amount if you're cutting the sewer back on. Because the sewer, we're doing nothing to cut the sewer back on. The sewer is going to stay on automatically because it rolls downhill. And I think that that's something that we need to look at. The after hours, I'm not sure that's enough, but I think it's something that we need to look at. But to double up on the sewer and the water, I think is kind of silly.
I think it's separated that way because there are more than a handful, but there are a small number of accounts that are sewer only. And so my assumption, because I didn't write this originally, is to try to address as many situations as possible. I honestly cannot tell you, I would have to ask our billing folks whether or not that fee is assessed twice on a sewer and water customer. I don't believe that it is in a bill, but I could be wrong, and so I would have to double check.
I don't think it should be assessed twice, but even if they don't pay if they only have sewer in their own well, we're not cutting it off. So how are we reinstating it to cut it back on? After hours or on hours or any hours?
Yeah, there's this sewer portion of this, even when you get into the actual disconnect pieces of the code, are very different than water, and then how long they can go without paying their bill, because then we have to get HRSD involved also.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
How do you stop? Let's say someone, well, I agree with Mr. Hutson, the fee should be a fee for, cutting it back on. You can cut off the water, but how do you cut off the sewer if they don't pay?
Well, eventually.
Well,
you're gonna let it back into their house? There's a valve that you can cut off in front of their house and it just backs into their house? No.
no.
Right. So how do you enforce it? And I think also, I don't know why I didn't bring it up last time we talked, I think the fees are low compared to our localities.
So if I can talk specifically to the comment that was made about the 6-inch meters comparable to other locations, we don't even have any 6-inch meters in the county. Our highest is 4 inches, and there are only 2 of those. I'm not even sure what would use 6-inch meters. The 4-inch meters are the hospital and dialysis center and the Yacht Haven. So I'm not sure what would go that high. But, again, at the last meeting, it was bringing you forth some options, and these are the ones that you all chose to advertise.
Can you bring up that slide that shows the fees with the new rates versus each of the counties?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
The slide that had the bar graph.
This one,
Yeah.
with the new rates?
Yeah, the new rates.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're the second highest in the water, and
So this is combined. This is water and sewer together with the new rates.
pretty comparable.
The 3/4 and the 1 inch, you said accounts for 97% of our connections?
Of our existing connections, yes.
Any idea why New Kent is so high?
I don't know. My thought is that given their expansion, I know that they're also expanding their water system. And they're the fastest growing county, and they're capitalizing on it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mr.
I appreciate the concerns raised by my fellow board members, but I don't think that we should scrap this and revisit it later. We need to continue the good momentum that we have in working on our utility system, and we can always come back and address the rates in the future if we see that there's a deficiency.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gibson? Okay, we have a resolution on,
The only thing I still have, and I'm kind of in agreement with Mr. Hutson, is the sewer fees, the reinstatement. I don't see how we can up those charges when we can't really send someone out to turn it back on or turn it off.
I mean, I can understand if somebody's not paying their bill, and it's the 4 or 5 customers that didn't pay their bill, and the sewer's, it's not cut off, because they're still using the well, they're using it. So we're just giving them a penalty to, it's a late fee, basically.
Is there a lien put on the house? Is there a lien?
If it's enough.
For backwash?
We have the ability, right.
I don't like the idea. I would love to know if we charge both fees in the event that somebody is on sewer and water.
I really
And
don't
they're cut
think
off.
so. I will find out for sure, but I really do not think so because we charge it usually by account. And so the account may be sewer and water, the account may be water only, the account may be sewer only. But I can find out.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Are we referring to the amendment on page 190 under 19-133B, the irrigation meter? Is that related to the, or where's the sewer reinstatement increase?
This is 19-52.6.
Same chart, two or three boxes up there.
So.
52.6.
Yeah, 52.6, where it just says charge, and unfortunately, I didn't catch that before it was advertised because I would have labeled it better to make it clearer. So charge for. Yeah, I don't have the packet.
The movement, the addition, or the increase from $75 to $100, the second row down?
Yes.
All right, well, then I would move the adoption of the ordinance on page 186 with the amendment that we strike 100 at the top of page 188 and change that to 75.
That's what it
Correct.
was.
That's what it was.
But that's still not the issue. I would like to know if you're being charged twice. And if somebody's not charged, if somebody's not paying their sewer and only has sewer, there needs to be some kind of more than just a late fee that they're paying. Because somebody that has water and it's cut off, they're paying a late fee and a reconnection fee.
Can I, just for clarification, it sounds like you're comfortable with the $75 as a penalty for them not paying, as long as they're not being paid twice, not having to pay twice. So rather than changing it back to
I'm
add
okay
in.
with 100 as long as they're not being charged twice.
Right, Right, that's what I was going to say. Rather than an amendment to strike that row or to change it to 75, it would be to somewhere in the narrative to say that an applicant cannot be charged both the reconnection fee for water and sewer. If there's a way to put that in some kind of a narrative.
And my next question, along with this, is with the new meters that are being installed, not all of them, but most of them.
But most of them.
Can you cut it off at central office?
No,
Okay, so you've got to send somebody out.
still, yes.
How much does that cost?
Well, it depends on the time of day, of course. So let's just say if it's after hours.
How much does it cost to cut it off?
One staff person having to go out there and cut it off. So the time, an hour tops, depending on where they're headed to and from.
But how many a month are usually cut off?
I would say what I've seen over the last 6 months or so is 40. In fact, we did not do disconnects this month because the temperature was expected to be 92 degrees or higher.
So you've got 40 that are being cut back on throughout the month.
Yes, usually within a day or two of them being cut off.
I'm not sure the $100, especially after hours, is anywhere near enough.
You can't, it's been advertised.
I have to do this all again for this chart. Well, we, the collective we, advertise this as it is presented before us. Ms. Legg has done everything she can to provide us with all the information to make this decision. At this point in time, I'm inclined to make the motion to approve as presented. And then that way, we get to a point 6 months, a year from now, and it's costing us money we come back and redo this chart. Would be my suggestion, and I will make that motion to approve as presented.
So that's
Second.
That's approved resolution on page 186. Okay, Ms. Steele?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Bazzani? Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Dr. Orth? Mr. Hutson?
Can I ask just one more question
I
that
did,
has
I'm
nothing
sorry, I
to-
don't have a vote for Ms.
Let him vote for Mr. Hudson, then we can.
Oh, I thought you voted.
No.
Ms. Lake,
Yes.
the groups that come in and have these meters that put on the hydrants, we give these meters to these people, right?
We do.
Free of charge, correct?
They put a deposit down.
Okay, and they're what, 2,000 apiece?
To purchase one?
Yeah,
Yeah, roughly.
okay.
2,000, 2,500.
Okay, how many of those are out right now?
All of them. I want to say, hold on one second, because I can tell you.
But again, we can't, for a person or a group or a business that doesn't have, they can come over and open the meter and take water, right? I mean, there's no stopping that unless there's a
Unless we
concerned
catch them.
citizen that
Correct.
says, hey, I see someone at a hydrant without a meter.
Correct, it happens. I want to say we have 10 to 12 hydrant meters, and we do have some companies that just hold on to it for a really long time. But yes, someone could, in theory, hook up to a hydrant without us knowing about it. And if somebody...
And there's no way of detecting that at all.
Not right now. There are systems in place if we put hydrant locks. It's expensive. You know, our system has about 750 hydrants. We've talked internally about a campaign to identify 5 to 7 hydrants throughout the county that we encourage companies to use. And we started to identify those, and then the rest of business got in the way.
Yeah, because I know I've seen VDOT with their water trucks come in, and I know they have a meter that they use, because I've seen them. But I know this was a concern raised by one of your employees that, you know, these items are expensive.
They are.
And if they're not being used, should we not get them back?
Right.
And give them to people that have a specific use for them?
Yes, so we've been talking internally about a better policy system. You know, these companies are supposed to call us once a month and self-report what the meter usage is. We follow up with them, but trying to get them back sometimes can be tough.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chriscoe.
Back in the good old days, when I worked for a lawn care company, we had to get a hydrant from Newport News Waterworks to fill our trucks for spraying chemical applications. Annually, we had to return that meter to swap it out with another meter so they could recalibrate and make sure we hadn't tampered with it and anything else. So that might be something we want to look at doing here. And maybe once we get things going, we can get a few extra meters so we can get those rotated in and out so that they have to come back in, and maybe figure out a way to mark these things. So if someone's going down the road, we have a Gloucester County marking, and if we have a Newport News meter hooked up, someone can obviously see that it's not a Gloucester County meter filling their vehicle.
Years ago, I was in York County, we had a secluded neighbor who had a swimming pool back of their house, and somehow he got a fire hose able to connect to the fire hydrant and filled his pool up with it. For years, he was changing the water out every 2 or 3 years. And
Yeah,
got
when
caught.
there's small usage like that, we're not really going to see it. There have been times where there's been large usage. We'll see it at the plant on our SCADA system. They'll immediately be able to tell when pressure starts to drop. We noticed that last year when we hit a drought, and we had companies with legitimate hydrant meters. They were paying for the water, but they were filling 5,000-gallon tankers multiple times a day.
Wow. But you can't tell which hydrant is actually being specifically used. It's just you see a water use drop.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Okay. Moving on to our regular agenda. Presentation of classification and compensation study results. Mr. Dan Ripberger, President of Bolton Rewards, and Sandra Bruce, Consultant, Bolton Rewards, and our very own.
Tammy Nunn.
Yes, Tammy Nunn.
Director of Human Resources for Gloucester County. I just wanted to introduce Dan Ripberger from Bolton Rewards. And of course, as you know, we engaged Dan's company to do the compensation study for us. He's going to present general findings and the process of the study this evening. Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
And, excuse me, just before you begin, let me just say, we are not asking for any decisions tonight. This is going to be a presentation of how it was done, what was done, and those findings, but we will be coming back to you at a future meeting. So for the public's purpose, that's in there, but just making sure the public knows we're not deciding anything tonight.
Thank you. And absolutely, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight and present the results of our study. Happy to address any questions, process-wise, get more into our review findings and what we thought those meant and implications for the county, and then obviously in terms of the recommendations that we have made. We will stop short, as was mentioned. Yes, please.
It's not clear. No. It's not clear what localities you're using in your study.
Well, actually, that's part of the presentation.
Okay.
Yep. Absolutely. So we were retained by the county. I know you can see it fine. I'm having trouble seeing the screen as we're going.
Put us all
To review. There we go. To review the compensation program and, if needed, recommend changes to it. Part of that certainly is looking at eventually where employees fall and jobs fall in that specific point in time picture. But more broadly than that, we're actually looking at the compensation system itself, the tool that the county uses to help ensure on an ongoing basis that pay is competitive with the market and fair. Across the board from an equity perspective. The major tasks that we undertook, a lot of discovery at the outset, both understanding the county,
understanding specific jobs through a fairly exhaustive interview process, collected all of the job descriptions and background data, and reviewed that, analyzed it, and spent quite a bit of time with it. We did do a market study, a benchmarking study, which is certainly part of what we're trying to accomplish. And then ultimately, as mentioned, identified gaps. Where can it be improved? Is it administratively, things that aren't being followed that should? Is it the design of the system? And really, I think that's what we'll get into more on the design of the system itself. This is, I don't mean to belabor, I don't know if we have any compensation experts on the board. When we look at it, we're really looking at it as a whole system. So ultimately, this gets to how much a specific employee is paid, but there are a lot of components that go into that to help ensure that it's legally compliant, but then also there's a perception across employees that it is a fair system, that there's a certain amount of understanding. So for us, you'll see us walk through these fairly major components as part of our review. First being job analysis, understanding the organization, jobs, how they work together, what the specific requirements are for them. Then we do two different exercises that get brought together. First is the benchmarking study, where we look at comparables in the market. And then we also look at a job evaluation program, which is kind of another way of saying how one job is valued compared to another job at the county. How do you look at those two, and what's the fairness in that system? Bringing those two together, there are some terms of art and things that are part of the professional practice that really dictate how you would develop a pay structure. And what that pay structure really says is, for any particular job at the county, what are you guys willing to pay? What's the lowest amount? What's the highest amount for that type of work and that level of work? Able to set up progressions from there. And then lastly is how do you want to change pay? How do you determine starting rates? How do you want to determine pay increases on an ongoing basis? What do promotions look like? What are budget processes? What do those look like? So this is more a bit of a recitation from background, and this information's in the packet. This sort of goes to some of that background data review and just highlights again that we talked really with every department head, either in person or in follow-up using Teams or telephone meetings for folks who weren't available when we were on site live. So there are certainly some good things that exist as we did this background review, and there's a formal approach for job descriptions. There is an established schedule of exemption status, kind of compliance with overtime law. Certainly there's a published schedule of active jobs with grades and ranges. So each year, certainly the board would understand, this job's in this grade, and there's certainly this number of positions that might be under that. And then there are a number of well-written pay policies that actually govern these sorts of administrative pieces. Probably the three major areas where we saw in our review of the system where improvement could be, and I'll talk about these in a bit more detail. First is the job title hierarchy, or the system used to title jobs. Then the job evaluation system, that bottom component in terms of the how you compare jobs to one another, and the formality and I guess explainability, if that's a word, how you could explain why one job's in one grade versus another job being in another grade. And then lastly, the design of the base pay structure. And you'll see our recommendation is to adopt a new base pay structure based on the market study that we're conducting. So from a job analysis perspective, the job descriptions are very well written. Some of the best, frankly, that we've seen. It's very difficult. I don't know if you've tried to write a job description, but it's very difficult to do so and to capture it at a level that really helps a human resources team understand the value of the job and be able to compare them back and forth. The one area where we did see a little bit of a challenge was in the titles themselves. And it may seem nitpicky, but it's very important when we start to talk about items like pay equity and trying to help develop a perception of fairness across. It's very easy for one person in one department to think they know what another person's doing in another department, even though they're not that direct supervisor. You know, they kind of get that perception. And if they perceive one person to be doing much, much less, but yet they have the same title of analyst or something like that, and they know the person's graded much higher, there's a lot of confusion, and certainly that person wouldn't feel like they're being treated fairly. And it could be just because they're not both analysts. Those roles are different. You know, one might be, you know, as we see here, I think there's some times where we'll see an analyst that's more of a supportive, non-exempt role, and sometimes where it is what you would kind of maybe expect an analyst to be an exempt professional with several years of experience required for that. So you'll see as we, yes, sir.
Quick question. Quick question. Does your analysis include an analysis of the risk of a particular job? In other words, the risk associated with a Parks and Rec person is much less than a risk associated with a deputy sheriff out there protecting the community. Are those kind of evaluations done with this payment study where you have to evaluate risk associated with that particular job?
Yes. Yeah, we basically, our evaluation system uses basically the legally established compensable factors, which risk certainly would be part of that. They were actually established in 1963 with the Equal Pay Act. Skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions. So when we look at responsibility, it's the positive and negative impacts of decisions. It could be physical risk when we get into working conditions, some of those sorts of things. But yeah, that all certainly goes into not only how we compare jobs to one another from a market perspective, but it's also in terms of what we're recommending in terms of an improved job evaluation system.
And also, my second question is the essentiality of the particular position. What jobs are absolutely essential to operate the county? Which ones probably are not? Do you have that about that?
No, you know, honestly, we have to defer to administration to make those determinations in terms of which ones are the most important from that perspective. Certainly, we look at as you say, the internal factors, those compensable factors, and then look at the going rates in the market. But we really didn't look at any sort of staffing issues or anything like that. Sure, absolutely. There were a few roles in our analysis. We didn't find any jobs that are currently considered exempt that we felt would be better served or more appropriately classified as non-exempt or eligible for overtime. We did find a few jobs and have reported these that with maybe further analysis could be considered exempt from overtime. There's a lot of roles back and forth that are very close. Certainly it's an appropriately conservative approach to consider a role as non-exempt and compliant rather than the risk on the opposite side, where you're not paying someone overtime or recording hours appropriately. So job evaluation is important, and I'm hopefully not boring you with job evaluation as a concept. But you know, it should reflect the organization's values, you know, what you find most important. It should help rationalize and deliver internal equity. So as you start to look at how jobs are compared to one another, it really should support the important things internally to the county, what you view. Certainly defined by legally acceptable, what we call compensable factors. So it's not competencies or performance-related behaviors. It is amount of skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions that a particular job requires of employees. And then last, it should align with the organization's need to recruit and retain staff. And really what this means is balancing with market and making sure that it's not all based on internal valuation, but it certainly provides an integrated approach with going rates in the market for a particular role or skill set. So what we found, and this is one of the interesting, it's a very well-written policy in terms of classification or how jobs get into grades, but it doesn't really say how jobs get into grades. It just sort of says they do. So one of the things is there's really not a real strong internal piece that gives you that basis to compare, say, Parks and Rec to law enforcement, or maybe more closely or more difficultly would be Parks and Rec to water and sewer, as an example. I think law enforcement's a bit more clear in terms of where the rates come from and how that's.
Because of state system, everybody gets the same pay raise regardless of merit, right? You're not, in the private sector, you're paid by your evaluation, whether you're an exceptional employee versus not.
I missed the very first piece of what you said.
In state compensation, we provided a compensation increase this year in our budget. Everybody gets the same increase, whether they bide their time or they work work hard. Mm-hmm. In private sector, it doesn't work that way. You get paid by your performance. Is that what you're saying? There's no formal system for job evaluation?
No. We're talking about, this isn't performance related. These are our competencies. These are why this job's a grade 10 and this job's a grade 11. What helps determine that? We'll talk about the pay delivery piece or that increase piece, but what you're saying is accurate. I don't know that private sector is that great at it either, but they certainly try and differentiate pay increases a bit more, for sure. So I don't want to bore folks too much with this, other than what this is really saying to us as we're looking at it is whether the system's right or wrong, the administrative team is following that system. So they've been adhering to it in terms of hires, reclassifications, those sorts of things. When we look at comp ratio, it's really looking at actual pay compared to the structure. And if actual pay is 100% of the structure, then we're saying it's right at its market policy, or right at where it says it wants to be relative to market. So what you can see overall is that the county's is 100.9% compared to the current structure. Now, I will tell you the current structure is off, and one of the things we're recommending is a new one. But in terms of what this is showing is that it's being followed and it's been an effective tool in that sense. The other piece that this shows is an appropriate distribution of rates where 80% of employees are within what we would consider to be a competitive range relative to the midpoint or the target, and that's that 90 to 109.9%. If someone's paid within that range, considering there's always some variability, both in statistics but also in terms of how people are paid, we would typically say that their pay is competitive with your market target. There might be a reason they should be above that based on long time in the job, or reason below it because they were just hired into the job and they didn't come to the county with any experience. But that would be that middle range. And certainly 80% of employees being in that range is very healthy. The other piece that we looked at, and when we really get into actual pay of employees, we really look at time and job, or try to look at time and job, to gotta get a sense of where they should be paid. But by looking at the average service, what we're able to look at is are folks tending to be hired lower in the range so that they continue to grow, which is certainly a healthy goal. And if you look at the average service under the employee distribution, certainly there's some variation, but it's showing that that's a fairly common practice. Any questions on this chart? Okay, great. So this is getting to the market study. We took basically two different paths with this. We certainly did the survey, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But we also used, from our library of published data sources, we really picked 4 to also use and to match the county's jobs to. Data from the American Water Works Association, and then from the National Recreation and Parks Association. Those are still generally public sector surveys, so those would be potentially comparable counties, cities, other agencies potentially. But we also brought in 2 additional resources, one from Mercer, and the WTW is, I guess it's the trade name these days for Willis Towers Watson. Both are really, really large compensation consulting firms, and those data tend to represent more general industry, or certainly much more private industry in looking at those information. Yes, sir.
Wouldn't those studies you include there, can you go back to that slide real quick? like, for instance, National Recreation, Mercer, I mean, they're taking, is there any bias in any of that data that's in there? Maybe they're taking northern end of the nation where people are paid more versus the southern end of the nation or the middle end of the nation. Is that information? I've never seen these studies before,
Sure,
and
sure.
I don't know anything about HR because I didn't do that job. But are those? Would you consider those biased towards a certain pay level, as opposed to a small little tiny county like Gloucester County?
We do adjust the data geographically, you know, for considering the information we're using is on a national basis, and we are sensitive to the fact if all of the participants happen to come from DC or from Northern California or something like that. In this instance, they do not. It's very much a representative sample across the U.S. with that. We do adjust that information for the geographic location, but it's not cost of living, it is cost of labor. What would be an equivalent job paid for here? It could be for an administrative assistant, it could be for a maintenance mechanic, but it's all adjusted geographically.
Because I've heard in the past, in my 12 years on the board, hey, I can get 25% better pay in Northern Virginia, Loudoun County, or any of those Northern Virginia countries as opposed to down here. Well, the consumer price index may be 30% more than what they get, you know, in the price differential between the salaries. So that's an unfair assessment, I think, to say I can get better pay, but your consumer price index is higher than the pay raise you'll get up there. Do you figure that in there, the consumer price index?
We wouldn't use anything that wasn't representative of the county, of the labor market here. And that includes when we get into the peers. You know, for us, certainly these are peers that you'll recognize and that are in the data, but we're really trying to represent the labor market, you know, that the county's facing. So it's if one of these happened to not be in there, we wouldn't consider it to be invalid data. You know, these are just sort of representative of the local labor market or sort of the regional labor market that we think is appropriate. We did invite 24 local government agencies, and we actually had 16 respond, which with the number of surveys that are going on and the lift that's required for folks submitting, we're very, very happy with this response. I will say we were aided by having done work for a couple other counties and agencies in the area, so we were able to get them to submit some additional information, and they weren't scared of us, you know, when we sent the email to start with. We had over 10,000 employees who were responded for. It's unidentified by name, but we had their specific information, and we use a person-by-person or incumbent data. We do summarize the data and stick to Department of Labor and Federal Trade Commission guidelines on what we'll show in using summarized information. So, you know, we'll never disclose specifically what York County pays for this particular job, for example, or what this roster of employees. But they are certainly represented in the sample of the market information. So what we found, this is this initial comparison of the county's market targets on the structure to the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentiles of the data that we developed. And just to give away one of our recommendations, I'm sure you may have seen it, we're actually recommending that you focus on the peers rather than this broader labor market. And you can see to some degree it's not based on the data, it's just based on the more precise market of being in a regional area. And I think we had, with 10,000 employees, we had very representative information to be able to provide. So actual pay is 98.3% of the 50th percentile, and compared to the 75th, it's 92.9%. Excuse me, actual your pay ranges. Currently. If we were going to recommend you keep your current pay system, we would recommend increasing the ranges by, at least 2%, for example, to bring them in line with market, at least at the 50th percentile. Yes, sir. So this kind of goes into our program recommendations. And certainly, as we're presenting these, if there's any questions, I'm absolutely more than happy to respond. Wouldn't change anything with the job descriptions. I think we're talking about the job evaluation system and putting in something that's a bit more robust, at least from a leveling system, being able to help describe in an independent fashion based on compensable factors what a level 1 should be, what a level 2 should be, what a level 3 should be, some of those items. Those are, from a grading perspective, those are influenced by the area that they're in. So a level 1 in human resources might be different than a level 1 in finance. But that's based on finance gets paid differently or doesn't get paid differently than human resources, at a particular level. However, you can still say this level 1 is this to us, and here's how it's defined in terms of these compensable factors. This is an example of a different sort of titling system, and without getting into some of the level distinctions at the far right, really what we're suggesting that the county take on in more earnest is if you're going to use a title like a coordinator, that it's used either for support and technician individual contributors or specialist individual contributors, which difference being one group's non-exempt and one's exempt, but not in both, that it gets stuck to one or another. Similar with an assistant title, or you can see certainly terms of professions. You'll see engineer being a title, accountant being a title, but you wouldn't then necessarily title, if you have more of a clerical or a clerk role in accounting, non-exempt role, you wouldn't title that job accountant, because that is, a term of profession, and that would be at that exempt level. The whole point to this, and it's interesting, it does become a discussed issue. This is an issue as you're talking to employees, as the county would walk through implementation. Titles are a thing, for sure, but it does really help drive that perception of fairness, to make sure that there's not this unseen difference that I had talked about earlier. From a philosophy perspective, before anything's adopted and formalized, certainly it should be put into policy, and there's some ways to help communicate and expand on how you would describe the compensation objectives for the plan, and then what the philosophy should be. But pragmatically, we're suggesting the 50th percentile of the relevant local labor market, and that's to some degree extended. Whether you go, on the other side of the Hampton Roads waterways, into Norfolk, Portsmouth, and Virginia Beach, probably not exactly. It might not fit. But part of our survey included Surrey County, and certainly similar issues, different pay implications for sure. So we're recommending 2 new pay structures, and these are both more fitting of sort of a professional design in terms of how you would want to manage broad-based pay and how you would want to change pay and progressions, but also particularly in the case of the law enforcement structure, using a step structure is, particularly in Virginia, is very common. And it's one of those that seems to really aid quite a bit in terms of recruitment of new deputies, of new officers, because of that understanding of what the progression is going to look like. Certainly there's a different budgeting implication of step structures. From a policy perspective, you can work around budget issues, but it does take some additional explanation, considering someone's expecting to move to the next step. And if for some reason the financial aspect is difficult to do that for the county, there's a way to kind of work through that from a discussion perspective. I'll just show you. So what we're suggesting in terms of really trying to manage versus having individuals think they should be at an exact spot or at one of these specific rates, we've broken the ranges into 3 equal parts. So it looks like there's 4, but that's for demonstration to show the target. Basically, there's the entry point, there's the market range point 1, and then the market range point 3, and then the maximum. Those are equidistant from each other, and just definitionally, as the county's working through starting rates, where in the ranges someone should be paid, those are all things definitionally that can be used to help determine should they be in this middle tercile, this middle part, or should they be high in the range or lower in the range.
To be clear.
Yes, sir. The target is set at the 50th percentile. Yep, exactly. And of the peer group, of the custom survey group. And then this is the law enforcement step structure. And you can see there are 15 steps. And the expectation is that based on good performance, someone would move a step each year. The grades, there are certainly different ranks under each grade, as well as there are corrections roles and law enforcement policing roles, which are certainly separated by grade. Sure.
When I did compensation, HR would recommend a budget for me, let's say 5%. And I think what you're getting at here is that the sheriff has some leeway as to paying his high performers more. So like if I had 5% budget, I would give some of my employees, some of my high performance employees, a 7% pay raise. The lesser employees would get like a 1 or 2%, but it all had to average out to 5%. Is this kind of similar to what you're proposing here, that the sheriff would have some leeway in paying for performance in some way?
I think there are a lot of some additional policies to work through, but one of the fundamental differences with this is it's less restrictive. It's more restrictive on that front than ranges are. So this is saying unless there's some fairly well-defined purpose or reason you don't move someone a step, you're going to move them a step. And that I think is the security, why it serves for law enforcement as a good recruiting tool. And I will stress, right now, I couldn't tell you in the past 3 years, we've probably done 40 law enforcement studies like this, and pay for performance with law enforcement is difficult for all sorts of reasons, both obvious and not obvious. So the step system tends to allow you to view performance, but in much bigger chunks versus trying to put a real fine pine on who's really good and who's sort of good and some of those pieces.
If I can, just
Yes,
a quick thing to remind you all. Right now, we have a .66 step program that affects law enforcement. This would change that. So ours is .33 for tenure and .33 for experience that they would get, and that's in addition to their cost of living increase.
What do you mean by tenure?
If they stay here another year.
Oh, I thought you meant tenure, they're forever employed.
No, their time. And so .66, so less than 1% of a step, which is really a small amount. And when you talk about how much that ends up being to a lot of employees, it's a very, very small amount. But it does help to keep compression so that when you have a new employee come in, this system, and this, I know we met with the sheriff the other day, and then Tammy and Maria met with him for about another 2 hours today, just going through things. And there's a lot of positive to this. I think that the law enforcement people will be very pleased with this if this gets adopted. But as Dan was saying, unless somebody's really messing up, they know they're going to go up a step, in addition to whatever COLA the board assigns. And then the steps are designed at, 3%, and then they go to 2%.
Correct.
So the new person that you're bringing in and all, that you're going to get them up there, and then you're going to keep them, and then as they're getting a higher salary, they're only getting 2%.
So this process here, this methodology minimizes the compression impact of an employee, let's say?
Well, I think it's a combination thing too, because part part of what you have to do is assign what step they're starting at when they come, and that would be tied into compression too. So I didn't want to interrupt as much as I did, but just to kind of remind you, 0.66 this is a more favorable system for recruitment and retention.
But I see where Mr. Bazzani was going because, you know, I was in a similar situation where, you know, the state would give the educational system a set amount, and then each department would get a set amount, and then the department chair would decide, you know, like a 1, 3, or 5%, as long as the total came out to be, you know, the 5%. But it gave high you know, performing individuals at least, you know, a little bit of a oomph if they did really well. I don't know, we don't have that system
So we
here.
have never done that. Ms. Garten was getting ready to do that when things kind of tanked with the economy. And that was a system that she had used before at her previous place, and she recommended that. We have not had pay for performance for many years because we've been trying to just stay up with the cost of living. And we wanted to make sure that we didn't sacrifice what our salaries should be based on the fact that we were giving somebody a high performer who deserved more money, but at the same time, you got to have that base. And so it may be that that could come, but it's like you got to have that first part. The foundation's got to be good before you ever look at pay for performance.
It also requires your leadership to be ready for it and know how to make those determinations and to have a common definition of what excellent is, you know, and what those standards are. And it's very difficult because it's also a budgeting question back to you, you know, because if you say it's this percent, it can't come back at a 0.5% higher, right? It's just not possible. So
it wasn't easy, let me tell you.
Well, what happens in the public sector too often is you say your budget is, and I'll be high, 4%. That's what happens. You can get that if you're perfect. So the whole pay for performance discussion is, well, we're going to start to take away from that. And it's just a negative, to some degree, a negative approach. With this, the only thing I would probably mention is what you would consider that old COLA, you know, we look at sort of what the market's doing pay increase-wise. That amount will probably be less because it's also influenced on what the increases are from a step perspective. So it's still a total dollar value that you're looking to budget from one year to the next. The question is, how much is the step and how much is the structure moving? Great. So I'll go quick because these are certainly in flux. These are our recommendations, and you know, as Tammy and her team work through these, I'm sure there'll be more information. But obviously, continue to make annual adjustments. You know, looking at the market, but also looking at ability to pay and kind of what's going on financially. When we look at starting rates, what will happen with this system, particularly with the evaluation system and then the new grade system, there will be some definitions, potentially by department or by broad group, around where in the range someone should be brought in, how much past experience. You know, if you have someone who's been in that exact job at York or pick your county, you know, Isle of Wight, how much of that past experience should you count toward where you would bring someone in? Certainly this is true both of the ranges, but then also potentially with law enforcement, you know, potentially with what steps someone might be brought in at. For example, you know, we have that first tercile. We would typically see someone who has less than 7 years of experience. As you get into that middle range, it's 7 to 14, and then above it's 14. Some of that, I glossed over it, really has to do with how wide the ranges are from a percentage perspective. The higher up in the organization you go, the wider the ranges go. Simply because as someone's tenure in the role continues to grow, they are actually able to add more value. You know, it's certainly less of a transactional kind of job. And then promotional increases, this is sort of a starting point for us, and usually there's a minimum set in terms of what the increase would be, but it would be 50% of the difference between the current and new grade midpoints. So, you know, if it's a 20% difference in terms of one midpoint to the next or one target to the next, the increase would be a 10% as a general rule. So next steps, certainly there are quite a bit. Fortunately, I think that the job descriptions are correct, but it's finalizing the pay structures, how jobs are graded and classifying on the evaluation front. And then certainly there'll be some ongoing work of finalizing some policies or making some changes. There will be creating an implementation process and a plan. Certainly there'll be some costing on a more specific basis that I know will come back as part of the discussion process. And then ultimately helping everyone understand it. So helping managers be able to use it as an effective tool, employees understanding it. Hopefully they agree with it and it makes sense to them. At least we want employees to be able to understand it and understand the logic behind it.
Do we have performance agreements? Do you establish performance agreements with each employee and you evaluate them on that agreement?
We have our job description that they're evaluated on and whether they meet the requirements for that and whether they are meeting them or exceeding them.
Okay.
But we don't offer any pay that goes with that.
There is an agreement of sorts that...
The agreement is the job description. When they accept the job...
Do they sign?
Yes, they do.
This is my agreement? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So the final slide, and this is just some guidance that we've provided to Carol and her team around how to look at potential increases. We do try and use terminology like across the board rather than cost of living, just because we try to look at the cost of labor, what it costs to hire a job here versus in other jurisdictions. And there's some work through implementation of a new system. Because we changed the structure, jobs aren't being regraded in a traditional sense, but they are put onto this new structure, and there's certainly some variance in terms of what those differences are. So that's it. I'm happy to take any further questions if you have any. If not, happy to be finished as well. Thank you too. You've helped.
I'm going to finish my piece of chocolate first. So first step, it's my understanding, I heard you correctly, that the job descriptions were well done.
Very well done.
Okay, so that's a good step in the right direction, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so then the other thing I picked up was job title.
Mm-hmm.
Then that needs to be looked at very carefully so that the job titles match what people are actually doing so that there's, as you said, fairness, correct?
It's coming up with a system.
Right.
And then applying that so that you can go back to say, no, analyst is this or that kind of thing. So it's a policy, frankly.
So the direction that you're directing Ms. Steele is to start with what's going to be her first step in this process, because we do know that the employees know about the compensation study.
Sure.
We're way past step one. I don't know what step we're on,
yeah,
but we've been working on it. So the review, like one of the things of changing the job titles, we haven't done the actual work, but we identified and understood. I was following the lead of former people, and there's been a little bit of variance, but we started calling people managers. We had certain people as coordinators. We have certain people as supervisors. So we have to look back at all of those. So that is something we need to finish up that we have not done. I think we probably I am, because of budgeting, too focused on the costing. Like, I want to know what the bottom line cost is, and y'all may be the same way.
Right.
And we don't have that yet, but we're getting closer because we're understanding. And so Tammy has been going through and has met with the sheriff too, who's already gone through all of his employees and looked at what their experience level was, not they've worked in government 20 years, but how long they've worked at that level of their job in that position. So all that's being put into the Excel sheet that they've provided. And then we're going to get to kind of looking at where those years of experience line up with those terciles, and we've already reviewed all the grades with them. So that's already done. We know where they are. We had a couple things we questioned about, And we feel good about it. It's just a completely new system that we went from, 32 grades to 17 or something. So there's a lot, what is it, I'm sorry? 18. So there's a lot less of the rows. So somebody might have thought, well, I was above you before and now you're on the same row. We're going to have to deal with some of that. We also have tentatively scheduled, and we might have to have 2 sets of them depending on how far along we get with this and what the board chooses to do. But we've gone ahead and just reserved space for all county meetings to be after the next board meeting. So we can at least give an update. If we're not to the point of giving you all the information and doing so in the board packet in time for you to digest it and say whether you want to go with this or not, we can at least give them an update. Because right now they are all, hanging out there and wanting to know what's going on. So our thought is that we would be having all employee meetings in August to tell them something. And it may again be part 1.
But I know in our budget approval, we included, about 700,000?
We changed the amount, and Maria can probably tell you the exact amount, but we think we may have enough, but we do not know if we have enough because it really relates to, again, of the years of experience that people have to where they will fall on that grade.
Right. But I mean, I know that, with what we approved in the budget, there was an amount.
Yes.
That we said, okay,
Originally, they had recommended 5%. We have 2.4% or 2.3% of our salaries reserved for making whatever adjustments need to be made.
So as we look at that timeline, because obviously the employees are now aware that you have this study in hand and you're going to be discussing this, I would assume, as you said, in August. Right. At what point will decisions be made with regard to...
That's going to be partly up to you all of whether we're ready to go for it or not. But I would remind that the employees just got a bonus and they're getting a 3% cost of living. So it's not like they've been, and some may not get anything from this, right? Because no adjustments needed. And that's part of the explaining to employees. Others, we looked at some law enforcement. There might be a $5,000 raise for somebody and a $1,000 raise for somebody else if it gets, adopted. So I feel that it was fortunate timing for them to get the June bonus and then the July cost of living to just hold us on until we get this done and we do it right, because we don't want to do this for another 10 or 15 years.
I agree that let's get it right, because you don't want to have disgruntled employees that thought this was done too hastily. And I know there's a timeline that we don't know what the timeline is, other than you said you would be meeting with the employees in August.
Right, just to give them an update and to whatever, because at one point we have said in these meetings, we might not have enough money, and I've said it in the department head meetings too, that it might be that we would be requesting the changes to take effect for January. I mean, not knowing how we were gonna score, we didn't know if we were gonna have nearly enough or too much money set aside. So that still is a little bit of a question mark. Within the next 2 weeks, we'll have that costing completed. So we'll know where we are on that.
So will the bonuses and the pay raises that we provided in the budget, will that figure into the calculus of the Bolton study?
The bonus was a one-time thing and it's done.
But so the increase in pay is a recurring cost.
The cost of living is included in that. So say, for example, an employee is 8% off of where they're supposed to be. Well, we just gave them 3. So we get the 5 left over. So if we look at it as a total amount of where they should be, then it's incorporated. But everybody got the 3%. So again, some may not get anything beyond that.
Let me ask Mr. Chriscoe and Mr. Hutson, because we've been on the board.
And if I've misspoken, please correct me.
Didn't we, years ago, have another compensation study where in 1 year we gave money to some people, then the next year gave it to the next group? Didn't we do that at one point? Or I could be wrong. I mean, that's why I'm asking if you guys remember.
We've done a couple.
Yeah.
The last one that we did was done in-house. And we tried to right-size what we had without not getting into the level of detail that the
Right.
Boltons
Yeah.
have given us. But yeah, somewhere along those lines, we're catching up this group this year, and then that group next year. Yes, we did do that, and that was in the last 5?
Yeah, I was here for that.
Longer than that. Oh, no, this was way, way back before.
It could have been up to 8 years ago
Yeah,
when
it was
Mr.
before
Smith.
Mr. Smith.
It might have been happening when he was on, right when he got here.
Yeah.
Didn't we adjust it for the schools as well?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. If you'd like.
I've been trying. You said there were 15 jobs that were considered non-exempt that have potential to be considered exempt. Is that 15 jobs or 15 individuals?
I'll say 15 jobs. It's at least 15 individuals. I'd have to go back and do the count of people that are in each one.
Okay, so
Can I just add that we don't pay overtime in most situations. We pay comp time at the time and a half. So it's still cost, but we discourage overtime for anyone, and when they are hired, they know where they're going into that situation. They are compensated legally, correctly, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're getting a higher dollar amount. And
I was just more concerned if there was 15 jobs with 20 people in each job, or if there's 15 jobs.
Yeah, those sorts of jobs would be hourly. These are going to be almost all individual contributor.
And he said if you err on that side, you don't get in trouble with the Department of Labor.
I'm with you.
And then, that's the issue of exempt versus non-exempt. Because, those people in each of those categories have different rules and regulations about what they can or cannot do based on their performance and work hours. So you have some people that work 60, 70 hours because they have to.
Well, that would only be for public safety roles. Outside of that, it's 40.
Are you sure on that?
Pretty sure.
For exempt, it is until the job's done, basically.
Well, no, I'm talking about, non-exempt. It's over 40 in a work week.
Right.
A continual 7-day period, unless it's public safety.
Since you've set, my next question is, since you've set through the meeting tonight, I'm going to use 2 examples of people you've heard. Ms. Ducey-Ortiz and Ms. Nunn. Ms. Ducey-Ortiz, based on her background, I think her pay should be evaluated with peers, our peers.
Okay.
But with Ms. Nunn being in HR, she could go anywhere. So why wouldn't that be evaluated with all or the general sector? Because we have different career paths within the county.
Sure.
That just because a locality, it's considered a government job and you're going to compare it with our peers, they might be able to go in the private sector and make considerably more doing the same job. Why is that not considered?
I think as you get into any of your management roles, they could all go into the private sector.
I'm not just talking, I'm just using those 2 as an
Well, no,
example.
but that's what I'm talking about. So the big difference, though, is really trying to manage internal equity and fairness. The person that loses on that is sort of the head of recreation and parks, because there's not as much. You can look at any engineering role, water, planning, any of that. There's plenty of private industry comparators out there for those.
Why are we not using that on positions and roles that would be easily transferred to the private sector versus just our peers for, like I said, planning is only going to be planning in municipalities. Whereas HR, you're going to have HR from Walmart to the hospital to wherever. So that would not necessarily be peers as much as all sectors.
It significantly comes down to internal equity and fairness across.
That's an exact
the board.
point. This is outside this discussion.
It is, and I'll argue, planning is a very important commodity for any commercial developer. So planning is not just municipal; it's someone who's going to go work for a large community developer, and they pay really well.
Yes, I agree with you, but there's only so many. I just think we need to look at different career fields that may have an opportunity to go outside easier than somebody in planning. And I'm not slighting Ms. Ducey Ortiz, but I'm just saying, because I mean, she's 5 times the pay scale anyway. You know, she's been here 100 years.
Well, honestly, the answer is, it's up to you. Because it is a policy that's set by the Board of Supervisors in terms of that compensation philosophy.
Well, that brings my next question. And Gloucester County should also establish a maximum number of years of job-specific experience that will be used to help determine the increase amount. As I said, Ms. Ducey Ortiz has been here 100 years. 95, okay. Why would you only consider 10 years? Why would we only consider 10 years of job experience? Or would we to what it's going to be?
So it's specific job experience. So if you have a director of zoning, director of planning, how long has that person been in that specific job?
Okay.
Right. So the only reason we're suggesting a maximum is this is a simple implementation exercise, and there is a maximum. There's a maximum any organization can afford. So we wouldn't suggest doing this group 1 year and another group the next year. It might be doing half of what you need to do the first year and then half across the board. But it's a policy to say we're going to go up to 15 years. And part of that is because once you are over 10, 12 years, you're already above the 50th percentile. You know, you're no longer a competitive risk. It doesn't mean it's not the right thing to go 20. It just means that the county's out of a risk of losing someone based on them making more elsewhere.
Where's your firm located?
Well, I'm based in Cincinnati and in DC.
Have you done studies for, I'm breaking topics now. Have you done studies for shipbuilding?
Yeah, actually, well, quite a few years ago.
Because,
Newport
you know,
News shipbuilding.
I'm a shipbuilder, former shipbuilder. And, you know, some of these tradespeople can go out and flip a burger and make more money doing that than building a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier submarine. Right. And I'm just wondering if you had that kind of compensation study for tradespeople in that industry.
I've not seen where a person that's building a ship of any sort of trades would be paid more at a Burger King. Now, that's not to say an entry-level person in water collection or distribution or in Parks and Rec, there might not be something competitive, but it's a different career. You know, one's sort of variable on demand with scheduling, where this would be a full-time role. Benefits, you know, potential for progression, all of those sorts of things. It's just such a different environment. Oh, absolutely. Any question? Okay, thank you very much.
But I have a question. I am in pain. Does anybody in the building have any ibuprofen or Tylenol they may be willing to share with me? Sorry.
That's okay.
It's my life.
Okay. Well, we'll just take a 10-minute recess. On our list, we're missing one board member. He'll be right back. Just give me 1 second. On our agenda is update on the school board's vote to return to paid meal model. Dr. Vladu and Ms. Arsenovic.
Yes. Good evening, Chairman Smith and Vice Chair Mr. Chriscoe, Mr. Wilmot, Ms. Steele, and the rest of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to be here tonight. I appreciate this opportunity, and I come to you tonight here to express both gratitude and regret. On behalf of the school board, thank you for the time and consideration and thoughtful discussion you dedicated across 2 separate meetings regarding the Community Eligibility Provision, or CEP. Chairman Smith and board member Mr. Nicosia made a strong and compelling case for its continuation, drawing on their firsthand understanding of how food insecurity affects many of our high school students. Last year, the school board unanimously supported participating in the CEP program. We had been doing it for a couple of years, but it expanded to all of our schools for the first time last year. And we had hoped to continue it this current year. We recognize that families can experience sudden and unexpected financial hardship at any point during the school year, and the CEP program provided peace of mind for families, ensuring that their children receive 2 meals a day without the stigma, stress, or the burden of additional paperwork. Unfortunately, after closely reviewing last year's and this year's projected costs, particularly following our initial funding request to you all, it became clear that even with your generous $450,000 allocation, continuing participation in the CEP would place an unsustainable strain on our food service budget. It is with sincere regret that we must acknowledge this financial reality. So again, we just want to, Dr. Vladu can explain in greater detail where we are today.
Thank you, Ms. Arsenovic. Well, good evening, Mr. Smith, Mr. Crispo, Ms. Steele, members of the board, and those watching at home. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I want to tell you, I always believe, and I still believe, that education is a team sport. So I want to thank you for your continued strategic investment in Gloucester County Public Schools. I think there's no shortage of data to show that we outperform districts that are similar to ours, academically and in other areas, and I'm proud to say that that's in large part due to you because of the financial investments in education and paying teachers, paying staff, keeping compensation competitive. We heard a presentation on how important that is in holding on to talent. So I do have a presentation for you, but I do want to answer any questions that you might have. Certainly, we had a couple of board presentations. And with the school board, we provided data, we provided information, and we also wanted to get before you to answer any concerns or any questions that you might have. I would be remiss if I don't take time to recognize Lydia, who's right in here in the audience tonight. This young lady actually, led the distribution of over 200 meals to summer school students today. The work continues. We had about 400 community members who actually qualify for a federal program and for meals that her and her staff actually do on a weekly basis, and I believe that day is on Thursday. And I grew up helping my mother in the kitchen in the Balkans. I mean, we did everything, right? From a garden to chickens to, there was nothing at the store. The reason I say that, if you think about the hands that prepare these meals, we're talking about almost 1 million meals that our central food staff have prepared and have given to our students this year. That is a monumental achievement, and it helps those students not only focus, learn, but also be ready to do better. And so I want to thank her and her staff because we're talking about meal prices. There's not a lot there. We're talking about per meal, $4.10. No one can, in the real world, can prepare a meal for $4.10. They do it routinely, and also part of that is to pay staff, so it's not a large margin. I just want to say that before I get started. But again, Lydia, I want to thank you and your staff for doing an outstanding job, so thank you for that. So I do want to go over some information and begin this presentation. I know you have had several presentations prior to this one, and want to make sure that we get to the point. So I'll start with a little bit of background. So back in 22-23, 5 out of 8 schools were on CEP. So why is that important? Because, you know, we have 8 schools. So as I'm coming in, new superintendent, I'm going around in the community, and I believe I was at a group of pastors with emergency management. One of the first questions they ask are, why is one of our middle schools getting it and not the other? Why is the high school not getting it? And then, so that's important, right? Because if some parents have kids at both schools, and from a fairness perspective, we had to look at that. So there were community requests to actually expand it to those schools, provided the funding was available. I do want to echo Mr. Hartley's words. If you go back to the videotape on August 10th, 2024, this was a trial year. And he said that on camera. So we, again, despite our best projection, we tried to get a complete data set in order to be able to see whether this program is sustainable. And as we continue to monitor the data, it became more and more clear. Remember, we started with CEP in all of our schools in August, September 2024, and the budget cycle really began in January, February. So a lot of the programs, a lot of the information related to the recommendation for budgeting for this program did not have a complete year or complete data set. So the program is not sustainable, and I look forward to sharing with you, but also with our view in public, why. So we're looking at the qualifications. When you're thinking about qualifying for CEP, we have one of the lowest reimbursement rate because our free and reduced lunch is 40%. And you multiply that by a factor of 1.6, that means our meals are not fully covered. In essence, you know, our meals are covered approximately 31% of the cost for those meals is not covered. Let me give you another example. If we had true poverty of 65%, then the federal government would pick up the entire cost of the meal. So we're about 25% short of making this system sustainable. I also want to say this before I go too far in this. None of us would withhold a benefit to our, God bless you, none of us would hold a benefit to students, regardless of what it is, when the funding is available and when the programs are available. So I just want to say that there's just been a lot of work and a lot of commitment to this program. So we appreciate the board's investment of $450,000 to help protect fund balances. It was a tight year in food service, again, because the margins to begin with, they're not very, very large. So as we go into the financial consideration, I mentioned that 31% of the meal costs are not currently covered. So we're, you know, in order to cover for the funding or covered for those money or the shortfall, then we would need to dip into food reserve funds. And I'd like to share with you some information related to that. So on this chart, you'll see in the left-hand column, FY17, so 2016, 2017 year, and you move on to the following year of FY18, relatively the same, and approximately splitting the difference are about $700,000, so to speak. Now you see a dip right prior to COVID. And so at that time, why do you dip into food, you know, service funds? If a stove goes down, you got to get one, and it's got to come from those funds. There are just a lot of the contingencies when you're dealing with so many, we're talking about 8 full-service kitchens, that anything can go wrong, and so that money will come. So again, historically, we went down. Then again, COVID helped us. And look at what happened with COVID with the funding when the federal government came in and provided unprecedented funding, not only just for food service, but for everything else. We know about the expiration of ESSER funds and everything else. So those fund balances in FY22 were approximately $1.6 million. Now you see what happens in FY23. So this is the 22-23 school year. As students return to school, we began to dip in those funds. And that's when those 5 of 8 schools, 22-23, came on board. And in 23-24, it continued. 24-25, you see that it accelerated into a reserve fund balance that's well below $100,000. And I'll zoom in into what this year looked like. So on this chart, you see another line graph for this school year when all 8 schools were on CEP, where you have a steady and decline in the funding fund balance that was available. And although the audit is not complete yet, we anticipate to be around $60,000. Again, we got to look at accruals, we got to look at the audit, but that's too close for comfort to actually finish up with that much. Again, all it takes is for one of those stoves to go down, and then we would have to dip into those limited funds to take care of those things. So I do want to talk a little bit about predictions, economic models and predictions. So we're thinking about, well, if families have more money in their pockets because meals are free, then we anticipated an increase in a la carte. You know, I'm a father of two girls. You know, we pay for their lunches, and then sometimes, you know, we treated them to an ice cream sandwich or ice cream bar that was extra, and we have to have money in their accounts. But that's not what happened if you look at this. So the a la carte history, starting again in in the left-hand side of the chart, FY18, we had approximately $350,000, give or take, in those extra sales. And in FY23-24, on the onset of bringing all schools online, the 3 remaining schools with CEP, you notice that we lost about $150,000 in a la carte sales. So students were not buying the additional ice cream sandwiches, the additional chips, honey buns, whatever. Lydia, correct me, I'm not sure if we do honey buns, but certainly they were not, that did not happen. So, you know, we're thinking about what's the difference between asking for $450,000 or $600,000. That was not a prediction that we had. It just did not make sense to us that you would actually not buy more with that money, pocket money, because kids like to buy things. They like ice cream. They like those kind of things. So that was, again, a big aha during the trial year that we had ensued. So at this time, I could stop for any question based on the data, and I have several other slides to wrap this presentation, but certainly I'm open to questions regarding the data processes. Myself and Lydia are going to do the best we can to answer your questions. Yes?
This excludes means testing of parents who can afford to pay lunches. Excludes all that.
That's right. So means testing in terms of, we had as long as we've been in education, there's an application. Students have about a month to turn that application in, and they will determine based on the Department of Agriculture whether they qualify or not. So no, under the CEP, there is no mean testing. Everybody gets a meal.
There will be.
Yeah, that's correct.
So you need some more empirical data on that for this year going forward, right? If you've implemented means testing of some sort.
So for this year in the fall, I have provided a notice to parents to tell them again that this program will return back to a means testing or to a qualifying criteria. So again, it's the way things have always been prior to 22. We're returning to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when is that starting? As soon as school starts?
Great question, and I think that takes me to this slide. So traditionally, and this is what will happen, because I want to be clear with our parents,
Okay.
The applications will be available on August 15th. We will have all the way through September where everybody going through the line, regardless whether they submitted an application or not, they'll get the meal. And that's the way it's always been, that you have an entire month to get that qualifying criteria. And you know, I do want to go into a little bit into letting the board know what our plan is to make sure that no one misses that communication. We want parents to be able to have that information. But throughout the month of September, we start school the week before Labor Day, that all students will get a free lunch. We prefer that they bring the application as soon as possible and not wait till the last minute, because again, if those students don't qualify, we have to go back to the fund balance to pay for those meals that were not qualified. So again, your $450,000, should you, and again, we're asking to keep it, should you allow us to have that, then it would pay for that September and August in order for some of the students who don't qualify to get a free lunch to adjust.
I have a couple questions. Well, one's more of a statement to start with. It sounded like you said that you were disappointed that our poverty level wasn't higher, because if it was 25% higher, more people could get lunches. That's just what it sounded like. Maybe I'm wrong. But, so if somebody doesn't qualify for free lunch or reduced lunch after, August 15th is when the application's coming out, and they get the meal from August through September, are they going to have to pay it back if they don't qualify?
So that prior to COVID, we always set a month, and every district has a month to bring those applications
Right.
in. So again, I think most parents realize that if they can afford it, if you're making $120,000, I think that most people are not going to try to get a free lunch. But we have until the end of September, and that's the way it's always been
I'm
that.
just concerned about the unpaid meal balances at the end of the school year. When will that be from? October 1st?
So that would be for the entire year. So it's
That's what I'm asking. So is it October and August and September, or is it just from October on if you don't qualify for the free or reduced lunch?
So both things are happening. So you may have unpaid meals that happen until the period that ends in October. However, at the end of the year, there's always a balance of students that have not paid for meals. Again, when they go through the line, we don't say no, that you don't have enough money.
I'm with you. My question is, if somebody does not qualify for free or reduced lunch and they receive it from August through September, do they pay that amount back?
That's right, we are required to collect on it, yes, but I can't guarantee you in that every case that family we pay it back, but we're required to collect it.
So we're truly not offering free or reduced lunch to everyone. We're just offering it, and the people actually should have to pay it back if they don't qualify. Is that what you're saying? Well, he just said they do, didn't he?
What Mr. Hutson, I think, has asked is, if you implement this policy where, by virtue of the fact that the applications aren't due until sometime in the fall, that you give everyone a free lunch in August and September. Right. If it turns out that those people don't qualify, do they have to pay for those lunches that they got initially for free?
So the status all stays free until an application's on file. So if a free student because everyone's free at the time, they have a 30-day waiting period. If someone submits an application and they're denied based on income, they start paying that day that we process the application.
So they don't pay it back?
They do not.
Okay.
We're only paid the reimbursements that are the free and paid reimbursements.
Just out of curiosity, how many people actually get free? I mean, don't some kids come with their lunch? So that, there are some students, regardless whether the application's in or not, they come with lunch anyway because their parents make the lunch, right? So it's not like every student comes through line for a free lunch.
That's a great question. So we serve approximately 3,000 lunches. So we have 5,000 students. So we have a couple of thousand students that bring their own lunches where they just don't need a school.
So at what point, I'm looking at the graphs, did we know this last year wasn't sustainable?
So let me go back to a couple of this graph. So when we look at the fund balances for particularly this, we went into this again, it was a trial year, and at some time, I was in the middle of the year, that it just didn't look, the more we looked at the data, it did not look sustainable. And as those funds continued to draw, it became crystal clear that we cannot continue down this path. So I don't have a specific day and time when we had a big aha moment. Is as we monitor those balances, it became clear that it was not sustainable.
But I can't I'm looking at his computer because mine's off, but it's pretty clear, even without an aha moment, when you asked for the 450, you knew that it wasn't going to be sustainable this coming year.
So the 450, there are two numbers you heard out there, 450 and a 600. 450 includes additional efficiencies. That's looking into every kitchen, looking at positions, and identifying efficiencies. But the more you look at that, sometimes it's not feasible because the way a kitchen is staffed, for instance, no different than our class size. You may have a kitchen that needs a dishwasher where it has 2 stations for cooking. So the staffing models would need to be adjusted in order to realize the 450. 600, again, is bare bones, but I also want to be crystal clear. 600 probably wouldn't have been enough, looking at that chart. And so as you enter into this, I will start that we would not withhold the benefit that our parents or not and students we could afford at the time. And we did that for 3 years. And as a trial year, we identified that, determined that it's no longer feasible. And the a la carte is new information, that the 150, that this just not materialized through those sales.
Mr. Nicosia.
I would address Ms. Lydia for a second. What was and you don't have to give me an exact number, but what was the percentage of the students we served in our cafeterias on a daily basis before this program, like when all kids were paying and things were going on? What would you say the percentage is, and it doesn't have to be exact, but what was the percentage of kids that were getting free or reduced lunch at that time?
So are you, just to clarify, that as a result of CEP, we had approximately a 20% increase in participation. This is, again, the students that participated in getting that lunch. Hopefully that answered your question.
We're going back, as I understand it now, we're going back to a pay-to-eat model, right? So I guess let me rephrase that question. Do you anticipate your number of free and reduced lunch participants in the new system that we're implementing this year? Do you anticipate that number to be greater than or less than when we used to do it?
I would anticipate that we're going to return to 2022 levels. So participation is expected to go down to the way the system was before the CEP. But Lydia, do you have any predictions on that?
Well, are you asking about participation or the free percentage? Like how many would qualify for free and reduced? What do I expect?
So I understand, like Kevin and I, we talked about this over those last 2 meetings. We have children in Gloucester High School that would qualify, but their parents are, for whatever reason, don't fill the paperwork out. They're not going to fill the paperwork out, and to be quite honest with you, they're pretty embarrassed with the situation, so they're not ever going to tell you.
Right.
So I guess my question is, do you anticipate an increase in that number of free and reduced lunches? Say I'm not a student, but all students were getting lunch the last year, okay? So everybody was going through, at least at our school, the majority of our students were going through getting something to eat, all right? And so do we anticipate now that our number is going to be greater or equal to?
I expect that the full meal sales will decrease some because it increased from about 40% to 62% by going to the free model. However, the a la carte sales, especially at the high school, kind of show the picture of that because a lot of students would come through and just purchase the sub sandwich and not get the fruit and vegetable and get a drink because it's cheaper than buying the full reimbursable meal. So that's a lot of the reason why you see the difference in the a la carte too. Most of the high school students will come through and just get an entree and maybe a bag of chips you know, when they have to pay for the full meal, because they don't always want.
So is the à la carte just at the high school?
No, it's all schools.
This is all schools.
So essentially what you're going to need is some runtime, right, with the new process, and then come back to us and say, hey, well, you know, we tried the new process and we're still short, and then we're going to have to decide how to fund the difference.
We are, yes, definitely starting out the school year with my balance being low. We're fully funded, reimbursable rates. So we'll receive reimbursement through the summer for the summer meal bags that I have in July and August, so that will be coming in. But once we start the school year in September, until we receive our reimbursements for September, which usually isn't until the second week in October, that's pretty much the funds that we have.
Mr. Chriscoe.
Dr. Ledoux, on the slide you were just on, which is number 6 in your presentation, you say May and June is projected, so we still don't have the final numbers yet for May and June?
There's still, again, there may be some accruals out there. I think we should arrive at the same number through the audit process, but we anticipate, again, 60 is around the number that we anticipate being, but again, without those accruals and all that process being complete, I really don't want to nail it any more specific than that.
Mr. Chair, just to make sure the board understands this too, and Ms. Callaway can correct me if I'm wrong, or they can as well. The $450,000 that was earmarked for the food program, it stays in a reserve account, and that's what pays for the expenses. And so that may be the $60,000 the end of the year that they have, if that's in there, and then the $450 gets put in, it's already there, then they would have $510 as their starting fund balance. They're going to spend a bunch in August, September, and then they're going to turn in those reimbursements. So the way that this account works, it's not that the money is transferred over to the schools and they're working. It's more like it comes through the system, and the fund balance helps carry them until they get their reimbursements, and then the fund balance again is used for things like buying the equipment and all that. During the budget time, I was saying they are going to need these funds, whether it's for fund balance or for I mean, even if you didn't do the free program, they would still need the fund balance. So I don't know, and like you said, maybe it will be enough, maybe it won't be enough with efficiencies and things, but I just kind of wanted to explain how that money comes in and out. And so this year, we dipped into not having money at certain times. You end out okay because you're getting reimbursed, but the reason you carry a fund balance is so that you have money to pay the bills until the feds reimburse you. And it got to a very low level this year.
So a la carte sales impacts you basically, right? Because if they just want a sub and a drink, that's less than a full meal. I mean, is there an idea would you float an idea that no matter what, even if you get a sub, it's going to cost you the same amount of money, so you get a choice of, you better eat eat the $4.10 worth, or you get a sub and you're entitled to the other stuff. To counteract the lost revenues you get from a la carte sales.
The federal government provides us a tool that helps us drive the cost for the a la carte, so we're not allowed to charge the amount of the reimbursable meal. They do want us to encourage students to take the full reimbursable meal, but we do also have a profit margin that they provide us to help come up with our a la carte sales, so we're still making a profit off of them.
If you go forward a slide. I can't see, I can't talk. If you go forward a slide, is that back? Forward. There. Is this what we're charging?
That's correct.
But you just said, although you said it was $410, it's $440 in here. That's the cost of the meal?
So Lydia, can you clarify those numbers? Yeah.
So that's what a paid student would pay, and along with that, we do receive a reimbursement from the government that's not quite as high as a free reimbursement. So the 410 would be the offset of the paid, what the students pay plus the free reimbursement. It's
Okay.
probably actually a little more depending on the level.
Probably the one person in here that knows me the best in this part is I'm too critical on certain things, right, Ms. Ducey Ortiz? If you go back 2 or 3 slides. One more. Right there. The meal cost average is $4.41. Is it $4.10 or $4.41?
No,
Says
I'm
right
saying,
there, meal
no, I
cost
know
is-
what you're saying, but the other slide said it was 310.
No, he
not
said that's what the
440.
price was.
Right.
That was done based on last school year, so hopefully with this school year and the menu items and stuff that we end up doing, we're hoping to do through efficiency some meal cost adjustments so that we can
State
make
provides
things-
nothing, right? The state provides no funding for you guys.
They do fund us a
They do
little
fund,
bit,
so you
yes.
get federal and state.
Yes. It's not much, but they do. And they will cover the cost of a reduced meal this year. So reduced families really will have 1 year of not having to pay as well.
Okay.
I guess this is twice. When I start looking at numbers and specifics, and you say one thing and it's printed something else, and I've said this before, we're not educators, except for Mr. Nicosia and Mr. Smith. But I know you don't count, you're in college.
Hey, wait.
But if you did grass, but I'm trying to make a point here, but he's got his little sandals on. You got flip-flops, it doesn't matter. But when I look at something and you say 410 and it's 441 printed, I lose interest because I lose complete faith in your numbers. And it goes back to the whole issue with when I was in school, if I would have said that or turned that in, my grade would not have been an acceptable grade because I screwed up with my numbers. And when you presented the tablets, you had numbers. They were completely off than what was presented. The numbers, they didn't flow. So where I'm going with this is, I don't know where the numbers truly are. Not that it matters. I'm in support of y'all having the $450,000 because we need it for this, and it's the only way that Lydia is going to make sure that they run efficiently and can get economies of scale and everything else. But I know if Ms. Steele was presenting to us and saying 410, it's 441, and then the tablets and everything else, I would be pissed at her, and she would know it. And so you don't work for us, I understand that, but I think that being an educator, I would think that more things were more specific. But anyway, I'm gonna leave that alone.
Yeah, and if I could provide some clarification. Well, so the context is important.
Hold on, excuse me. You're absolutely right, but if you go back to what we're selling, the breakfast for is $2 and something and then 3 something, we're losing money on it. $2 and $2.10. Okay, if that's the average cost, if the breakfast is there, then the lunch is gonna have to be closer to $5 to bring it back down to the $4.10. Not that it matters, but that's what we're selling them for.
And I believe, Lydia, you stated that was, if you calculated last year's or this year's we completed cost per meal, you ended up with this number.
Correct.
And that will change because if there's any inflation during that year, so when you enter the year, you end up with a set price that you don't change. However, the average cost per meal may change because of food inflation, availability, and a number of other factors. So I do think that is why we have a difference in those two numbers, because I do know my team have looked at these numbers routinely. We met with Mr. Hartley, with Lydia, with Mr. Duran. All of us have looked at these numbers. I think what's lacking is the context. So we'll do a better job in providing context to say this was for FY25, this was the average cost per meal.
Well, and a breakfast does not cost as much as a lunch. And when I determine the cost of the meals for next school year, we're given a plea tool by the federal government that we complete. And if you end the school year in a positive balance, then you use that as a guide. So I looked at kind of what I would be charging for the cost of the meal, what it cost, plus the reimbursements that we will receive, because it's on a different level, whether it's a paid, we do receive a paid reimbursement plus. For a free reimbursement, or free meal, we receive like $4.42, and we do not have our reimbursement rates yet, which is also kind of crazy because they want us to give them what we're going to charge meals by June 30, but I have no idea what they're going to pay me for my meals. So it's a crystal ball, and I'm still waiting to get those. But the breakfast reimbursements are obviously less too, so I made sure when I cost the meals that the meal would, between my reimbursement and what I'm charging, would equal the free reimbursement for the paid.
Dr. Orth.
Which arm of the federal government do you actually send your bill to?
The left one.
I thought it was the right one. Who gets the bill? Is it, because I'm asking, where does it go?
It's
And-
a USDA-run
Oh,
program.
USDA, okay, so it's not,
But I submit my reimbursements through the state, and they kind of monitor the program.
and that program is still alive and well?
Yes. So far, yes, it's still there.
So, question, the $450,000, you're gonna be using part of that to fund the meals for August, what's left in August, September, and then October, they'll go to the pay, right?
That's the process that we will use, that is correct.
What should we use next? Is it any way to know how much is that $450 is gonna be used for those meals up until October? It's hard to do that?
So there are some variabilities here. We haven't been in this situation before where we were 100% paid and then we went back to a application model. So I can't anticipate, I could anticipate that it may be larger, those balances, than previously when folks didn't know what they're getting into. Families are planning that to pay for lunch. So I can't give you a precise number, but I would anticipate that the unpaid balances next year are going to be higher. In my experience, again, as a principal, as an assistant principal and director, you always look at those unpaid balances. Every school district is going to have some, but I anticipate them to be higher simply because we're moving from everyone getting a free lunch to folks having to fill an application.
And I want to be clear that no one will have to go back and repay any money from when school starts up until the 1st of October. They don't have to pay any back pay for lunches.
Yes, sir, and that's the way it's always been prior to that. But again, we want families to complete that form as soon as possible. I see,
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
No.
So the way that it works is whatever their status is at the end of last year, which right now everyone is at paid, it remains that status until they submit an application. So if a family submits an application and they're denied, then they start paying right away. When a student enters their number in the system and there's no application on file, it's going to show a free status. So it's not accruing a charge on their meal account. So once the application's received, if they're denied, when they key in their number, it's going to show that they owe that lunch charge. And then if they don't pay it, then that's when the meal charges start to accrue.
So I'm
But
really
once
confused
an
now.
application hits our desk and we process it, their status will change over to whatever it is at the time we process it.
But the accrued cost, you're not going to ask them for, hey, you just
There
accumulated $25.
is no
We
accrued
want that.
cost.
You're not going to ask them for the accrued cost.
We try to collect it. We attempt to collect meal debt when,
But not for the
If
needy,
they're
not for the needier students, right? I mean,
no, there is no meal debt. So if an application hits my desk and we approve it and it's free, then it starts free right then. But for the first 30 business days, those students remain free.
But bottom line, every
unless
child gets
I
fed,
receive
though,
an
right?
application.
Every child gets fed regardless, regardless of this
We
program.
always feed all the students regardless.
Comment. Okay. Mr. Nicosia had his hand up.
Thank you. So, in my finite brain, let me see if I could figure this out. So let me just walk this for a second. I'm not trying to aggravate nobody, I'm trying to understand. So, Tony, student, Gloucester High School. When I step into the high school first day of school, and it's my lunchtime, I'm gonna go through your lunch line, I'm gonna get my lunch.
Yes.
All right, now I'm gonna play two different parts. You tell me if I'm right. I'm a kid that does not need, I do not need, I'm fortunate, and I do not need free and reduced lunch. So I'm that person. So if I'm that person, I figured out that, what you just said. If I'm free and reduced lunch, my mom, my dad, my grandma has to fill out an application. From the time it hits your desk and you approve it, I've got to start paying. That's pretty simple. But we haven't talked about the kid that can pay. So what about the kid that can pay? So I'm the kid that can pay. My parents are fortunate enough to have money enough to pay for my lunch every day. So when I show up for school on day number 1 and I go through the line, it's free. And it will stay free until till October 1st.
It's a 30-day school day grace period.
Because I realize, gentlemen, that we are talking about free and reduced lunch. But I have had a large number of parents who can afford for lunches for their kid. They can say to me, what about us? How does this affect us? And so thank you for clarifying that. I think it's a little wonky that a kid that can pay gets that 30-day grace period, and a kid that's free and reduced lunch has to start paying the day his application is approved. I agree with that, 100%.
Right.
30 days, it's a day that the application's
Right.
approved.
Right. So if a paid family really wanted to pay for their meals, they could submit an application in the first 30 days and be denied. And if they are, they revert to paid. And anyone who's on a direct cert, and I don't believe he's gotten to that slide yet, we do receive a list from social services every year in July, August, on a monthly basis throughout the year, and those families are automatically qualified with no application. It's just kind of a weird process this year because this is the typical business, because families should have some leadway to get applications on file if they qualified the prior year. They don't want to cut those families off from day 1, but because we're coming off of CEP, that 30-day grace period still is in play.
And Lydia, can
all
you
right, hold on.
clarify, is this 30-day grace period?
I got one more question.
Is this something new, or is this something that goes?
It's always been in effect. Like I said, it's when you've always collected meal applications, it gives the families who qualify or may not have qualified, a few days to get their application in so they don't start the school year having to pay. But unfortunately, because everyone was on a free status at the end of last school year, that free status carries over until I receive an application or the 30 days of school, whichever meets first.
All right, so then the B part of my question is something else that I've fielded in the last couple of days. You have an application, you will get applications out. I've talked to some high school parents in the last couple of days, and they have asked me to find out whether there will be an electronic version of that application.
so that they can, I mean, I'm sure that's ahead, but
You're fine.
I'm still lost on the, I don't understand it.
I'm with you. Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair? Because what Mr. Nicosia just said is that the student who could afford to pay continues to get free, while the student who is proven that they don't qualify has to. Why not make everybody free that first month?
They are, because last year they were free. So if we fast forward to next year, the kids that have started to pay, when the school year starts, they will be required to pay.
Right.
The only ones that will continue to get their free lunch next year are the ones that were free the year before.
Right.
It's because everyone was free last year that this is the conundrum that it is. I mean, it's not anything that anybody planned to do. However, we have found out that the amount of money that we have for this program is not enough. And when the budget was built way back in January, February, the number was still, $400 and some thousand more than it is projected to be once May and June come in. Hold on. This is a problem that we are creating because, and I say we, they need the money. We got to leave the money where it is so that the food service does not have to operate at a deficiency. Hopefully the 450 is enough to get us through to the October 1st, and let's hope we don't have a catastrophic failure with a piece of equipment.
See, this is the problem when federal government, just the unfunded mandates. They give you, okay, here, free meals for everybody, and then they say, well, no, we've recovered from COVID, we're going to stop the program. And so now you're going to have to rely on your process to weed out those who can afford to pay and those who can't afford to pay. But at the bottom line is, I think, I don't know if you're going to have as many honest parents who'll say, well, I'm not going to submit the application. I'm going to continue to my kid get free lunch, and I'm making $300,000 a year.
October 1, if your application is not approved for a free or reduced lunch, you start paying or you start accruing debt.
She done told you 6 times that October 1st.
Right, that's right.
But the student who can't afford.
That is correct.
Well, how are you going to enforce it? Put a lien on their house? How are you going to enforce it?
Can I just end this conversation?
All right, guys.
So the bottom line of the whole presentation is to let us know you guys are hurting after October 1st, right? That's the bottom line, correct?
Well, it's all on the
fact that you guys, though for no fault of your own, there's not going to be enough money. Period? Is that correct?
No, we don't anticipate that. Again, it's nice to have the addition. There's a reason why that reserve fund is there, strictly in case some of these things happen, to anticipate some of this. So it's a fallback. It's all in the process. So the district responsibility, my responsibility, working with my staff, is to get applications into the hands of parents ASAP, like yesterday. Well, 15th of August is the earliest we could do it, and have a process where parents are completing them, bringing it back. A paper application goes home with every child. The card line, table at Walmart, table at Food Lion, back to school block party, Altex, the town crier, I mean, you name it. Have a comprehensive communication plan to get those applications in, collect them, and I believe your staff will process them like ASAP. The faster that happens, then the more accurate those numbers are, so we don't have the uncertainty that we're talking about. Because once the child qualifies, when they go to the line, now we have either they qualify or they don't qualify. We don't need to wait for September 30th. Parent needs to fill that ASAP.
I just want to know,
get that information.
Are we going to be looking at a request from you guys? Because, so that's what I guess I'm trying to get at, Mr. Chriscoe. No, right?
No,
okay.
No. They want to keep the 450
Right,
because
right,
it's
yeah.
But you're going to keep in the food service.
Food service.
So, but here's the thing. So that month grace period is for the person or the family or whoever, whatever you want to call it. That's for the ones that don't fill it out. So once you fill it out and you're approved or denied, whatever your status is changes that day. So if you're approved, well, but whatever day it's approved or denied, you start either paying for your lunch or it's going to be free. And if you don't have the money, you still get your food, except now there's a debit on your account.
Right.
And also, if there's a change in family status, right? Dad, mom whoever got a raise, now you qualify or you don't qualify, we continue to get that information throughout the year.
So, if September the 5th, say September the 5th, 6th, I feel like my application, I'm denied, then I start paying September the 6th or 5th, whatever. Right?
Whatever day it's approved or denied.
Whenever you, that's what I'm saying, whenever you process it.
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm not getting free till October. I'm gonna start paying whenever my application is approved or denied, right?
By the date of, yep.
I just wanna make sure that that's what we're saying here.
When we
Not that I
When we
don't know, I wanna
receive
make
an
sure.
application in our office, we have 10 days to process it.
Right.
So once it hits our desk, if we have a mountain of them, we get to it within 10 days. So at that time, once we process it, that's when the status switches over.
Okay.
But if we don't have an application on file, then it stays free until the date that it drops off.
So what's
And
preventing
then,
you from sending the applications out earlier so that you have?
because we can't process them yet because of the 10-day period. If we
Right.
receive it in our office now and the computer's not set up to process, when they review me, I get done for it.
All right, well, I'm okay with that.
And just as a clarification, as far as like what you were saying with the reimbursement, like during COVID, you know, the reimbursements really just haven't changed. It is what it is. You know, back then they did give reimbursements for meals, but it's the same kind of structure prior to COVID, where you receive your free reimbursement based on your free percentage, which comes from that direct cert list. And we do not do that. We do have a, you know, procedure where if families start accruing a balance, we reach out to them, we send them applications home. I make phone calls to them and ask if we can help them complete an application, you know, and explain what, you know, their rights are as far as applying for it. So we make all efforts to collect it, but we don't not feed the child. That balance remains on their account until they graduate high school. It just keeps accruing.
That's an interesting point. So, like they do at a university, you know, you get parking tickets and things like that that you've accrued. You don't get your diploma until you pay off what you owe.
Well, that'd be horrible.
Right.
Is
We
that
don't-
something that we do in?
We
no,
don't do
that in
that,
Gloucester
no.
County?
Because it's not the child's fault if the
Well, that's
parents
true. It's
don't,
not the child's
you
fault.
know.
I know you're not saying that. Of all people.
One question. When did this, I know just last year's when all schools had free lunch. When did we start with the 6 schools having, 6 of them had them for years? When?
5.
5 of them. When did that start?
I believe that started in 22, 23. Was it forward? Backwards. It should be here. 22, 23.
The 5 were post-COVID.
And that had to do with the federal government reducing the percentage for us to qualify.
So just for public concern, okay? Wouldn't be able to, it wouldn't be sustaining your food system if it wasn't for that $450,000 that we had voted to give you guys with the CEP program. It would have been really hard without the $450,000.
It would-
Public sake, okay? All right,
It would be a hardship.
it would be a hardship. My only concern, the only thing that upsets me about that is if we had this complete discussion before all of this. I mean, somebody had to know something. So if we could have had that complete discussion, then I don't think we should have, we wouldn't be here now. Well, I mean, we had 2 meetings where I know we discussed this for an hour at a time and doing this. So if we, and I know somebody had to know. So if we had known this complete thing, we wouldn't be here. I don't have a problem with the $450,000 now. My problem now is we gotta feed children, I understand that. And I wanna make sure we're doing all we can to capture those children that are free and reduced lunch. And I see you guys have so there you have different ways you're gonna be doing that and getting out in the community. Now, one other thing is this, I don't know how this is done, but it may be something that you can check into. Now, this summer, you know, they did have a program called Summer Bucks. Have you heard of the Summer Bucks program? Summer Bucks. I wrote it down here. Summer Bucks. What Summer Bucks is, okay, what it's doing, it's an EBT card. All of the kids that they have, social service have.
We do that.
That social service have, they send out for the summer, this Summer Bucks card for those kids that were on free and reduced lunch status or some type of social service, EBT, whatever. They send those families $120 on a card. Did you know that?
Yes.
Okay.
We process it every
So
year.
whatever method they're using to do that, also they can probably use this to capture some of these kids that need to get free and reduced lunch.
So that's how we receive. So the way that the names come down for that is off of our direct cert list. So like I said, each month, social services sends us a list for all the families whose students qualify or their families qualify for SNAP benefits, TANF benefits, Medicaid. So we import that list into our computer system every month. So once the computer system's ready, we import that. We'll send the letters out to those families. They're qualified for the entire school year, even if the SNAP benefit changes.
Okay, that's what I just want to make sure.
Yes, yes, we process those every year, and they do a couple updates throughout the summer. And we're also doing the summer meal program, and I will be able to continue to do that for 4 more years, where we're giving out 7-day meal bags of 7 days of breakfast and 7 days of lunch.
So the kids physically come to the school to get their lunch?
The parents can come.
The
So
parents will come.
we do a bulk bag, so they come once a week on Thursdays. They drive up to Page, we hand them the meal. They pre-registered, we check their name off the list, and they go on their way.
Do you find that, just because it's this, you know, you can always do things nowadays with things like that. Let's say you have 120 parents on a list, and they've received money from social services, and only 50 show up. What do those parents do with that money that they've gotten from social services? Do they keep it? Do they?
They can
Will they
use it for
buying beer?
whatever.
Buying
I
some-
don't believe they can do that. It has to be for food.
No, what?
Right.
Say again?
Only qualifying foods.
Right.
The $120?
Yeah.
Oh, that's food strictly.
Right,
They
it's
can
a little
only have
debit
food
card, just
strictly.
like a SNAP
The
benefit.
stores will know if they go in.
Okay, okay.
Right.
I want to make one point, though, that when we were having one of these discussions, Mr. Hartley was here. And he said then, even if we gave him the 600, he wasn't sure if that was going to cover it for the year. We did know that as we were finalizing the budget, that we may not have enough to get the whole year, and we were looking at trying to continue what we did last year forward. And I think with the continuing decline of that fund balance, leaving this where it is the best interest of us, the schools, and the children that rely on this, on the food at the
Yeah,
school.
I understand. I know Mr. Hartley did say that the night before the last night, the one we had the hour first, he said that. What I'm saying, if it had been discussed to this depth, you know, to the depth of what we're discussing it tonight, if we had have known, you know, we just didn't know.
More questions. So
It's great feedback, if I could respond. It's great feedback. I think the decision, the inflection point was in 22, 23. Once those 5 schools started, we started down a path. And in retrospect, I do agree with you. I wish we had this discussion every year to show you that data, but you know, hindsight is 20/20. And but I can tell you this on behalf of my staff, we would not ever want to withhold a benefit from students. So that's why we went into this with goodwill and understanding that our families qualified, and therefore we wanted to provide this benefit while we had the funding.
So going back to your 100, I have to ask another question. Going back to your 120 students, you then make 120 lunches then in preparation for these 120 meals. You prepare the 120. Well, what if only 50 show up? What do you do with those meals? You throw them out?
No, so we don't prepare the meals. Everything is either shelf-stable or frozen.
I got you.
So we pre-bag it, and it's by serving sizes. So we have 1 bag for each student, so nothing gets wasted. It's either frozen or shelf-stable, and it's all items that we serve in the kitchens. We have a 2-week rotating menu, so if they don't come and pick the bags up, they're already pre-packed for 2 weeks
So
from
you got it
then.
covered, I get it.
And then the last week, we're going to give them all whatever we have left.
Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
She
Yes.
uses her resources very wisely.
Yes, and we have, in addition to that, we do have students that have helped pack the meal bags to get their community service hours. So it's been very rewarding seeing all these high school students come together, and they've been great students and great working with them.
Yes, Mr. Nicosia.
Dr. Badu, Lydia, thank you. Ms. Arsenovic, thank you for coming and talking to us. One last question that has come to my attention, and I was going to call you, but I knew you were coming, so you were on the agenda. So when do you anticipate, I would think August probably, the rollout for your pricing? Parents who I've talked to that are going to fill their kids' accounts and get ready for the school year, they ask me, when will the pricing rollout be? So what will it cost me as a parent to feed my high school child? What will it cost me to feed my elementary school child?
Sure. It was on the slide, so we've already set it, and I did send it over to Tricia last week, and I've asked her to post it on the website. But I will be honest, I did not go back and double check to make sure it is on the website, but I have sent it, and usually she did say that she would have it up that day. So it should be posted, and then I was going to work on a flyer that just kind of communicates us switching back.
Okay. All right. Everybody happy?
Thank you.
I mean, it really was, and I'm not, I'm not trying to, be. I just wish would have felt better if I had known all of this.
I may not be here by the time you guys may request some additional funding, but I would vote for yes if you did.
Well, right.
I hope you don't need any more.
But thank you for saying that, because we might have to hold you to it.
Hope you don't need any more.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we take just a few second recess, a 5-minute recess? C on our agenda. Item C, and that is Technology Overlay District Recommendation for Planning Commission. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good evening again. So as you know, the board had asked the Planning Commission to look at creating a technology overlay district, and the Planning Commission thought before they move forward with that to have the town hall meeting at RCC, and many of you were there, and I appreciate you all coming. And so based on that meeting and the comments we received, plus the survey that was done, the Planning Commission is recommending that the county no longer pursue the idea for a technology overlay district up in the Glens area. And so since you all asked us to do that, we just wanted to finalize it with your decision.
Okay.
Yep. I'm good with, I don't know about the rest of my board, but I'm good with having the status quo until someone with a bunch of money comes here and tells us they want to do it, and then we will re-engage and just figure out how to do a technology overlay district when they make it so worth our while that we have to do it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, moving on. Item D, request for golf cart use in Piney Point subdivision. Mr. Lewis.
Now she's challenged me. I've got to make it even shorter than that.
Okay. There we go.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Totally. Yep. Yeah.
Okay, it's been moved,
Yeah.
moved and second. All in
The
favor?
neighborhood is completely appropriate for this. and I
Okay,
think-
moved and second. Look. Okay, good.
He took the words right out of my mouth. I brought
All
it
in
up there, it's
favor?
gorgeous.
Oh, we got a vote? Resolution, yep.
Yeah, it's a resolution. It's not a resolution tonight.
It's not a resolution.
Tonight, it's just asking if you all want us to move forward. If you do, we will come back with a resolution.
Yes, sir.
At a later meeting. And then, and just the other question I have, and Trish, correct me if I'm saying anything wrong. Do you want a public hearing? It's not required. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank
Anything
you.
else I need?
That's it.
Thank you.
All good. Okay.
All right. Mr. Chair, notating that we are close to 10 o'clock and we have been going at this for 4 hours now.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion that we amend our agenda to move items E, F, and G in the closed session to a later dated meeting, most of which probably will happen at our first meeting in August. And then we can continue on with items 12, 13, 14, and 16.
Okay, H.
Yeah, we're going to move items E, F, G, and the closed meeting to a later date. And we can continue with the rest of the agenda.
Second.
Move to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, so moving on to board appointments. What we have here. First of all, we have board appointment consideration. Let's see. I don't have anyone for Board of Equalization, no one for Clean Green Advisory Committee, and the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission.
I would like to make the appointment of Mr. Christopher Renew to the Planning District Commission.
You'll do, okay. All right. We had Middle Peninsula
The
Planning District.
second one is
Commission.
open to, you have up to 5 openings for Clean and Green. So if you're interested in appointing more than one, you can.
Okay. Okay, so we'll do both. Got the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission.
I just made that one.
We just did that one, so we're good to go. All
We
right.
need a second for both of those, gentlemen.
All in favor? Okay. Moving on. Mr. Wilmot's done his already, but he's happy to be here still. Okay, board and commission reports. Already gave yours. Anybody else? Supervisor discussion?
Mr. Smith and I met with the fire department again.
Yes.
And I know that we all received a copy of an agreement from them. I would like for my fellow board members to take a look at that agreement and the info that Mr. Wilmot has sent to us so that we can schedule a discussion in a meeting like this. If we have time, we'll do it at our first meeting in August. If not, we'll add it to the Planning Commission meeting after they adjourn to have some discussion to figure out the steps forward so we can get that project rolling. So you have those in your email. If you don't, let us know. We'll resend them.
Has Mr. Wilmot responded to it?
I suggested that the committee appointed by the board weigh in first before we devote significant time and resources in reviewing this agreement. Also, since then, just recently, I received an email from our finance director indicating that the structure that they proposed probably won't work. What I think they proposed was a grant, all up front, basically. So if for no other reason than exactly as worded it won't work, but I'm not saying the general idea won't work. So yes, I haven't really looked.
We will schedule, Mr. Smith and I will schedule a time to sit with you before we meet again in August and so we can have the deeper discussion.
Right.
Does that work for you?
Yes, I just didn't want to go down a path that without the board's blessing.
And I think Ms. Callaway has already had a good discussion about that, so I think she's helped us. She's helped us out a lot with that. So when we meet with you, we will
Yes.
do that. Go
I,
with that.
I will wait to hear the results of your meeting.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, nothing else?
Motion to adjourn.
Whoa. Supervisor discussion. Ms. Steele and I met with a developer purely by chance, not by chance, but I was there by chance. He mentioned something, and I want Ms. Steele to gather more information about it. I believe you called it lights out ordinances. If businesses or...
Which is not the same as dark sky.
Right.
Totally
But
different.
if it's lights out, if a business or buildings are vacant over X amount of time, and it was only 180 degrees in the sun, we weren't smart enough to get in the shade. So, but he mentioned that a lot of localities have it, that either the buildings have to be remodeled, partially rented, vacant, can't be vacant, or have to be torn down if they're old. I would like for staff to look at that and see what needs to be done, what can be done as just a preliminary way of starting it.
Okay, thank you. Any other supervisor discussion? Okay.
I think before staff spends a whole lot of time, I don't know what other localities are doing that, because cities and towns have a whole lot more in their tool bag than we do, and I don't know what, it's just, yeah, to me, it's a stretch.
I don't want anything more done except find out more information about it, who does it, what can be done, that type of thing. What timelines are on it, time limits, that type of thing. Because
We can look under the Muni Code very quickly just to see if there's counties, first of all.
Well,
that have it.
I'd want to know what problem or problems are intended to be addressed, because you can't fashion a remedy until you know the problem.
He was talking about derelict buildings.
Well, we already have the tools to address them, we just don't.
That may be that we have enough to make them tear it down, but I think it's only if it's unsafe. This was if it was unsightly and causing other kind of issues. So.
All right, we'll find out.
All right.
now make your motion.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. We adjourn.